Thursday, January the 26th, 1:02 p.m. 1:02 p.m. here on the West Coast of the United States of America. Here in Southern California, the weather is beautiful. It's sunny. It's a bit windy if you're in the valley, but it's a great day. It looks cool, and so it's a bit weird being being in an office where the weather, and we're not going to get it. It'll probably be like this for another couple of hours, and then that's it. So we're enjoying that. I hope you're doing well. I hope you're ready for our Thursday, which is usually a interview time, but we are waiting till February, which is February's next week, guys, for us to launch our relaunch our interviews with various scholars. But one of the things that I've figured out, okay, and you guys tell me whether I'm on the right track here or not, and this is a response from a lot of you guys, is you guys enjoy the scholarly stuff and bringing on scholars and having dialogues about, but one of the things that you guys have been telling me is to do more conversations with friends. So I did a conversation with my wife, and a lot of people really enjoyed that. I did a conversation with our pastor, and a lot of guys enjoyed that and got some good feedback from that. And last week we did a conversation with Jeremy Collins, who's a friend, fellow YouTuber. And again, it's the conversations are a bit kind of, they're not of like the heavy scholarly stuff. And so I think one of the things that we're going to add to our streams, and who knows, it might be, so we're on Mondays, we're on Wednesdays, it might be Tuesdays. Because then we will be on, by the way, if we do that, we'll be on Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, live. That's crazy. Every single day we'll be on live for long form content. So if you guys are interested in that, and I think you guys are, a number of you guys have responded to me and said, hey, yeah, that's cool. We enjoy those conversations. And so I think we're going to add that on instead of taking our Thursday spot, because we want to keep the Thursday spot for conversations we have with various scholars. I think there's a great deal of benefit in that. We want to provide kind of a higher quality of content when it comes to the scholarship surrounding apologetics and Christianity and theology. So we'll keep the Thursday, but I think we'll add one where I just get a bunch of friends that jump on here and we just have various kinds of conversations. So with all that said, I hope you're ready for us to have a conversation. So let me know who's in here. What's up? How you doing? It is windy. I can hear the wind howling outside. Let's see. What up, Ziliok? Short lunch break. Well, enjoy your lunch as we sit here. Hey, look. It's our buddy. Thanks for passively listening. Looking forward to tonight, brother. Oh, I knew I was going to wait for some more people to jump in here. Did you guys get notifications saying that we're on? I got a fun announcement. My Armenian guys just dropped a really, really good video on the death of the disciples. Now that's only in Armenian, so, but it's a nice video. What up, Carl? How you doing, man? We got some cool stuff that we are planning, man. Really cool stuff. So our flagship, I always say the Apologia Center Armenia is the flagship. So they're like the guinea pigs. We do tests on them, but they're about to start like actually what the idea behind the Apologia Center essentially in the beginning was, apart from the digital stuff, which is what we're doing here. This is not meant to just be a YouTube thing, by the way. It's a ministry. It's a whole on ministry. And they're starting book clubs. And we're going to start those here as well. And then hopefully through some of you guys, we'll start a bunch kind of simultaneously in various places in the States. If you're interested in that, if you're interested in hosting an Apologia Center book club at your church with your own folks, shoot me an email. We'll go through the books you guys can pick. I'll guide you in that. I'll guide the leaders. I'll probably end up having, kind of a leadership meeting with all the leaders of the various kind of locations or chapters or whatever we want to call them, centers. And so the idea would be that we want to start a bunch of local meeting spots in different churches where believers and unbelievers alike get together. They read through a book, and that book doesn't necessarily need to be an apologetics book. I mean, it could be something against Christianity where folks read that stuff together and then analyze it and talk about it and all that. So if you're interested in that, let me know. Shoot me an email, info@apologiacenter.com, and then we'll get you set up. Hey, Jerome, I got a surprise for you. I don't know if you were here when I said that, but currently we're on Mondays, Wednesdays, Thursdays, Fridays, but we're going to add a Tuesday to this. So we're going to be on Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Isn't that amazing? It's my second favorite Christian apologist. Here's what I want to know. Who is your first favorite apologist? I'm interested in that. I want to know who number one is. And I have no idea why you would even say I'm number two, but I'll take that as a joke. It would be cool to get an Apologia Center bookmark merch with a list of your most suggested books on the back of it. Oh, that's cool. So I have bookmarks, but they are not like what you're suggesting. The thing about making a bookmark that has a list of like whatever top 10 would be that it continuously needs to get updated every once in a while. Too much streaming, it seems. No, it's the way these things go. My friend Ruslan does almost every day, if not every day, multiple times a day. That's crazy. Yeah, so I'm again, like I really, really want to know who number one is. But your first impression on me was good, man. I'm so curious. You know, it's look, just because. So, I really want to know who the person is that gives this thumbs down every time. Look, you can jump on here and give me a thumbs down. No problem with it. But I want to know who you are. Because I want to build a friendship with you. Now, it might be one of my friends, just playing a practical joke. But it's like every stream, like why you watch it and then gives a thumbs down, which is, that's fine. But at least step out from the darkness and then say, it is I. And I mean the darkness in multiple ways. And say, it is I that gives you the thumbs down. I will respect you a lot more. I got 2 thumbs down now. Oh, that seemed to be a mistake. Paul, I don't know what this is. Is this your number one? Who is this? Man, something just went in my eye. Oh, so Daniel is an actual person. The Muslim skeptic. Okay. Number one Christian apologist is Frank Turek. That's cool. Frank's a cool guy. Dude, he's a tall dude, man. Like when you're standing next to him, he's got a commanding presence. Frank is a cool dude. He's actually pretty like, my interaction with him has been he's pretty like quiet and not like extroverted, kind of crazy. I could be wrong, but again, the number of times I've seen him like in groups and stuff like that, he's not doing the talking and all that stuff. It's very interesting. It is Andrew Tate that gives the thumbs down from a Romanian prison. Andrew Tate is on and so a friend of mine watched one of my Tate videos yesterday, and the comment he wrote in there was, Arthur, pick on someone your own size. Now, Tate is a big dude, but I wonder what's going to happen with him. That I got a video that I made a while ago. I think it was, let me see. Andrew Tate said this about Christianity, a Christian response. That video has been doing pretty well, actually. What is it? Total almost at 18,000. Wonder what, let's see. 365 days. Oh. That's all time. So in the last 365 days, it's the most viewed on my channel. But let's do lifetime. Whoa, it's officially the most viewed. I didn't even realize that. Okay, second most viewed is what does it mean to be, what is a woman and what does it mean is a short, which is okay. But the third is what is a woman, Matt Walsh, Jordan Peterson, and philosophy, 11,097. But that Tate video is 17,000. That's cool. It would be very interesting, actually, in all truth and honesty. It would be very interesting for a sit down with Tate. Okay, Johnny Cashcoat. You can throw a rock and hide your hand, working in the dark against your fellow man. But as sure as God made black and white, what's done in the dark will be brought to the light. So the person who gives the thumbs down, you're going to be brought to the light one day, is what Carl is saying. Frank is not number one. James White is much better than Turek. Well, look, man, it's very obvious kind of what your leanings there are. I actually dislike Turek, but he provides funny content, and that's why he's number one in terms of Christian apologist. Now that I think about it, there are 3 more apologists that I like for the reasons I like Turek. So actually, Arthur, you're in the top 5. So I'm not being very, this isn't very encouraging. It's like you like them because you dislike them. You like us. Am I included in that? You like us because you dislike us? Muslim apologist Daniel Hakiktashu is defending Andrew Tate now. Yeah, so I don't think I've interacted with this gentleman, Daniel. I've seen his videos. It's obvious. Like, I went on his YouTube channel and then I've seen some of his videos. But so, because his YouTube channel is called The Muslim Skeptic. So he is a Muslim, huh? Or he's not a Muslim? Or he's a former Muslim? Videos. Tate versus Walsh. Interesting. Female doctors. This Bible verse commands the hijab. That is so clickbaity for Christians. Help me, give me some context here, Paul, by the way. Now I'm very blessed because I'm an atheist. So maybe this dislike comes from me disagreeing with you. So is it you, Paul, Jerome? If you're the one who's giving the dislike, just say it's you. Then we know why you're giving the dislike, and then we'll move on. I think Turek is more approachable than White. Kinder attitude, maybe overall, I think. Maybe so. I haven't interacted with James White, so I wouldn't be able to tell you. But generally, I've met quite a bit of the apologist folks. A good amount of them, I'm trying to see who it would be where they're not approachable. I think all of them are approachable, pretty friendly. Some of them might be intimidating just because, their stature. But like even they're not trying to be intimidating. That's just like our issues. It's like you just get intimidated by folks that, you look up to and stuff like that. That's like normal. Tom said, Carl, that's actually an Elvis quote. I made the comment on Turek without soteriology just based on a debate. He is one of the best. Check out Wise Disciple to see him give a breakdown for both debaters. The apologetics empire is entertaining. Daniel is defending the darnest things. Okay. Hey, that's interesting. I think I've hit I think I've given thumbs down on some videos. Okay, folks. Guys, we just launched merch. Do you see that on your screen? On your screen on YouTube, there on the bottom there should be some merchandise stuff popping up. Now we just got the logo done, and I put the logo on a couple of little mugs and water bottle, and I think a phone case. Shirts and stuff like that will be coming. Those are going to take a little longer to design because it's not just a logo on it. Even though I do want to develop like kind of a preppy collared shirt with like a little pocket that's got the logo on it. It might not be for sale. Like I might just make that myself. So yeah. But that's out. Where did it go? So that's another way y'all. Where did that come from? Excuse me. I gotta have Jeremy design a couple of things for me. That Yahweh hat got so much reactions, so many people liked it. So, Jeremy, I gotta get you to design like a hat or something like that for me. So yeah, there's the merch logos. I'm definitely gonna have to buy these. The phone case I'm definitely gonna buy. The question is whether I'm gonna get a new phone or not. Hey guys, we're up to 3529. So if you're not subscribed, here's one thing that's unique, by the way, about the YouTube world. So let me check this out. I'm gonna go on a video. I'm gonna do some comparisons for you guys. So let's go on a live video. Okay, content. No. Let's say we'll take that Andrew Tate video that has all those views. And let's look at reach and engagement. Reach. YouTube search, 71%. I want to see the amount of people that are, obviously 17,000 people aren't subscribed to the channel, and I'll do a more, like a live video. So 96% of people who watch this video are not subscribed to this channel, which is crazy. But you could say, well, that's an anomaly. That's a video that, a bunch of people have clicked on. So that's why I want to find a video like my last, let's say January 2nd video. It's got 310 views. That's a live. How many people are subscribed? I want to see if this fits the categories. 67% of the people that watch that video are not subscribed. So that tells you need to subscribe. You need to hit that bell notification button. Yeah. Oh, I'm sorry. Sorry. I read that wrong. 67% of people that watch that, these are good numbers actually, are subscribed. 32% are not subscribed. Usually like videos when you put out like, so that's a live one. Let me put it, the last video I put out. Let's see what the numbers are on this. So this video, this is the guy that's going after that hockey player. This is closer. So 45% are subscribed, 54% are not subscribed. Usually on videos, you get about 70% of people watching your videos that aren't subscribed to your channel. Reactions don't always translate to sales. Correct. Jeremy's in the house. Jeremy, I got a lot of reaction from that video, by the way. Folks saying that really appreciated that whole kind of conversation, especially on differences and stuff. So that was cool. Correct. Well, their longer form content usually is like that. Like you need an audience. But I appreciate you guys. Y'all are cool. Here, let's do this. Oh man, I want Tomek to call in so bad. If you want to call in. And multiple people can call in as well. Like I can have 4 or 5 people on here. Anybody who wants to call in, click that link, go through it, call in live now. Anytime you need a pastoral opinion to balance out your philosophy, I'm in. Shots fired. Do you know the amount of friends I have that are pastors that say this? It's phenomenal. It's like, oh man, there goes Arthur doing his philosophy stuff. If you need a theologian, we'll let you know what's going on. Let's go, Tomek. If Tomek calls in, what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put his image up and then just let him run everything. He's going to be like the Apologia Center co-host. If he comes on, our numbers are going to spike like crazy. Overnight, we're going to get like 100,000 views. Wow. I'm waiting for an answer. That's not the video. Sorry, I accidentally posted something. I don't like making mistakes. Do you guys like making mistakes? Some people are like, yeah, I don't regret anything. One of my most disliked comments, by the way, is I don't regret anything. I'm going to make a very strong statement. If you are a person, you might get offended. If you are a person who doesn't regret anything, you're a proud person. you're an arrogant person. That comment comes off as though, and I'll tell you how it works. People are going to go crazy on this. And I've heard people that I respect quite a bit say this. When people say, I don't regret anything, and then you go, what do you mean you don't regret anything? And then they come back by saying something like, well, every opportunity is a learning opportunity. And like, if I didn't do that, I wouldn't have learned from it. That's why I don't regret that it happened. My response is, wisdom would dictate that you learn from the mistakes of others. Now, that's not always the case. Like, I myself obviously have made mistakes and done wrong things that I've learned from, but I regret it. Like, I sit down and look at it and I go, well, there was a better way I could have learned that. I didn't have to make that mistake in order for me to learn that. I could have just learned it by paying attention to other people. Why would I need to do that? So I think it's a cop-out. When people say things like, I don't regret anything, and then, that needed to happen and stuff. Like, number one, I don't believe in fatalism, so I don't buy it. Number two, or determinism. Number two, common wisdom would dictate that there are things you regret in your life. I regret a lot, regrettably. Why are people saying my name? Because I invited you on to the show right now. I said, if you come on, then our numbers are going to spike. It's going to go crazy. Like, we're going to get 100,000 subscribers overnight. So I got to push back. I like this. Also, your channel name is spelt incorrectly. That's not how you spell center. Center. Thanks, British folks. Appreciate it. Americans just have a weird way of doing things. That's okay. Just blame it on Americans. You can hold both at the same time, though. You can grieve the wrong choice, but thank God in his generosity to make good out of evil. That's not what I'm saying, right? Like, yes, amen to that. But also, Scripture actually teaches us wisdom, in which the idea there is that you develop your wisdom enough where you look at other people, right? Like, for example, the passage that comes to mind is, go study the ways of the ant, you sluggard, and become wise. Like, so you can't say, I was lazy for 3-4 years of my life. And I don't regret being lazy and wasting 3-4 years of my life because I learned not to be lazy. But the response would be, you could have learned not to be lazy by studying the ant, let's just say. And Scripture actually told you to do that, but you didn't pay attention to it. You just continued being lazy. And then you're like, I learned how not to be lazy. It's like, no, there's better ways for you to learn those things. Right? So that's why you have wisdom literature in the Bible. Partly why you have wisdom literature in the Bible, so that you would learn wisdom from others. We place way too much emphasis on personal experience. Way too much emphasis on personal experience. Like, as if you can't learn things without personal experience. Now, notice I didn't say we place emphasis on personal experience. Personal experience is actually important, but way too much emphasis on personal experience. And I would say this in the case of Christians specifically as well. Like, we ought to be learning a great deal of wisdom from our parents, ideally, or older people generally. We just don't. So we go and do stupid stuff, then we go, I learned that I shouldn't be doing that stupid stuff. It's like, well, if you learned, if you paid attention to your parents, then you should have been fine. We got a caller, ladies and gentlemen. Hang on, I got to bring my caller in. Now, this caller is the greatest caller in the history of calling on Apologia Center. One of the best and greatest at whatever it is that he does. We're going to bring this man in. Get ready. Okay, now you can't see him right now, but you're about to see him. Just make sure you're ready for this. And he's frozen. Why are you frozen? Dude, you froze. Right when I brought you on, you froze. Oh, man, you need better internet, dude. Did you see that? Did you guys see what he did? He's so amazing that he called in, froze his screen, and then just hung up on me. Okay, I think, are we ready to go? You can call in? Yeah, you can call in. Back to me. Hey, Tom, are you ready? I shared the link. Jerome, you're not paying attention, man. We're good. Okay. So we're bringing in the greatest caller of all time. Hey, you're good. We can see you. Oh, man, he's got that Lakers. He's got that old school Kobe jersey on.
My friend, there is only one greatest of all time, and he's
in
on
basketball.
my shirt right. How you doing?
Okay, I'm doing good. Why do you keep freezing? This isn't good. It goes and then it keeps freezing. Okay, hang on. I want to see Jerome call in. Ooh. No, it's my fault, Jerome. Actually, I'll take the blame for that because usually when I share that, I pin it. Someone fix up Tom's internet. Here, let me pin this. There we are. I'm going to start streaming just for Jerome. I'm going to start streaming like 3 times a day, every day. But are those not both two different types of experiences, whether it's primary or secondary? By the way, I do agree we should listen to wise counsel. Well, that's right. I don't want to give the notion we shouldn't. We'll talk about that. I think that's a good point. Hey, why do you keep freezing?
Can you see me?
Yeah. Well, I could see you before too, and then it's just like you do something, and then it just freezes.
Maybe this stream just can't handle the excellence that you brought onto your show.
Wow, this is the greatest person ever.
How you doing, man?
See, there you go again. Man. It ain't my fault. Hang on. I gotta help this guy. He doesn't know how to use the internet. Ah, interesting. So why? Why would you just repeat what Pine Creek says? Which is, by the way, I'm saying that in jest. In the context here, Jerome, that Christians quite a bit get accused of like repeating stuff that, Christian scholars are saying. It's like, oh, don't you have anything new to say? It's like, well, if newness became a standard of truth, that would be interesting. But one of the things that I do want to do on this channel, and eventually I think we'll do it, is actually have Peter Boghossian on because I would like to talk to him. And I know he's not focusing on the atheism thing and stuff like that. And I think it'd be cool to have him on because he's a philosopher, because he's Armenian. And everybody just copies his street epistemology sort of stuff. I recently bought the audio book of his book, the audio version of his book. So I got to go through that. So yeah. So okay. So aren't those two different kinds of experiences? Yes. So all of life is an experience if we're using the word experience in that sense. But that's not the way I was using it. Because even as a child, I had to do things the hard way. Well, why? You didn't have to. You did it. And that could be a personality thing. However, I think this is similar to reading audio and hands-on experiences. If we humans can know this, God must know much more. Correct. Okay. 4th try.
Am I on?
You are.
I'm not touching anything.
Did you run a speed test?
I did. My speed is 250.
Oh, fantabulous.
Yeah, no, there's no issue.
Okay, don't click out of the browser or something like that. It might be that.
No, yeah, this is weird.
Okay, go ahead and introduce yourself.
I'm Tom Egg, as some might say.
Bro,
you know, it's interesting. I asked.
Okay. Sorry, your Instagram post yesterday from that Netflix show. I shared it with people. I shared it with our friend Sako, and I was just cracking up about it.
So this is the funny thing. I asked my parents. I'm like, hey, where did Tom Egg come from? Because like in Armenians, Barskais, Persian Armenians have like Tomik and stuff like that.
Iranian Armenians, not
Iranian
Persian
Armenians. So we don't have Tom Egg, right? So I asked them, and they said, you know, we were watching some show in Iran. It was a translated show, and we heard the name. So I started researching. This is when like I was just on the internet, and it came to like a soap, like a piece of soap. And like that, I found one thing with my name on it and a piece of soap. Anyways, years passed, and when I recently searched, I actually found out, because the original spelling is Tamek, or Ka in in Armenian, yeah, but K in English. So it's actually a Turkish name. It's actually a Turkish name. So what my parents did to me is unforgivable. If my mom had not given birth to me, I would have disowned her. But but apparently it's a Turkish name. So if I lose any friends or you lose any subscribers,
Tomek. Well, I'm not gonna go there. I was gonna say something, but I'm not gonna go there. Yeah. Sometimes it's better to shut your mouth.
Good to be on, man. Listen, can I say something before you ask me anything?
You've been such an encouragement to me. I mean,
I was gonna say the opposite. I was gonna say I'm proud of you, man. Like I've seen you. I wouldn't say I'm one of your first supporters on here, because I think you had this before we even got close in the last couple of years. Mm-hmm. But you have been going at this like crazy, and I'm seeing you. And what people should know that are watching is this is not some character he builds. This is him. If you go out with him, like I will probably tonight, if our wives allow, this is him. This is the this is the kind of conversation we have. This is how we talk. This is how we chat. Yeah. If anything, he holds himself back as far as being passionate. So you guys are getting the real deal here. Yeah. So I'm proud of you, man. I hope you grow to 10,000 subscribers, and if you get there, I will wear your face on my shirt.
Okay, so here's a sociological observation I made. Okay, for those who follow me on Instagram, we did like it happened on YouTube actually, and we took my face, the angry one that I got, the thumbnail, and then we made a cartoon version of it, and it looks pretty cool. I think it looks cool, but and then some folks were like, "Hey, we'd wear a shirt with that, like that face." And I think it was Ashley that suggested like a coat. Like, I'm not mad. I'm just saying bald is beautiful. And so I made like a shirt like that. I mean, well, not printed, but like digitally. And I was like, I wonder who would buy this. So I put it on Instagram, said, would you buy this shirt? The first person to say no to this was my wife. And she sent me a message. Like, who do you think you are? I gotta read this. I really do, because this is the sort of relationship I have with my wife. And the raw conversations, right? And if I was a little pansy, then I'd be like extremely offended or something. But my wife sent me a response. She voted no, and then she sent me a response. Right? She wrote "really" with 3 question marks.
Oh yeah.
And so I said, "Isn't it nice?" And she said, "You want people to carry your face around?" Exclamation point, question mark, exclamation point, question mark, and 2 more. Who do you think you are? And she wrote narcissist.
Hey, listen, somebody has to keep you on check, man.
So
I
amen
feel
to
like,
that. Amen to
yeah,
that. So I responded to her by saying, look, people actually asked for this. This wasn't my idea. Like, I didn't say put my face on the shirt. Like, some people asked for it. And she did the emoji with the woman slapping her head. She wrote, let them go worship God, not you.
Amazing.
Phenomenal, right?
Said, I have learned from experience not to question your wife.
You've known her longer than I have.
Araz, I completely agree with you. Nobody should be wearing his face on.
Here's the funny thing that I realized, and this is what I was saying. So the votes came back in. It took about a day, 24 hours. And it was almost like 50-50. At one point, it was 52-48 in favor of about, I don't know, like 200 people saw it, maybe like 40 people voted. And then some other people said no, and it ended up being like 52-48 all the way. But here's what I realized, Tom. The people that know me the way you know me, like are closest to me. I went and saw, I looked at everyone who voted. Almost unanimously, the people who actually know me said, no, we will not wear this. The people who don't know me like that, right? They know me through social media. You know, we've become closer, but they don't like live and share life with me, said yes. And I was thinking about it. I was like, man, it's sort of like people see you as a person and they're like, no way, like, we know Arthur, bro. Like, I'm not going to wear a picture of his face on the shirt because he's my friend, right? Like, and then people who kind of maybe know you or follow you in the given climate or whatever like that, who go, yeah, I would wear that. It's very interesting. I mean, even now, Ashley said, send me a message saying, hey, make a, and this has to do with like bald people, and I might do this. I might like mess around with it more, but it's like bald ally, like mugs that says I'm an ally to bald people.
Well, you know what the thing is. I don't think it's that people won't wear the shirts, even people that are closest to you. I just think people that are closest to you tend to keep you like the most balanced in your life. Like for me, I didn't vote on the poll, but for me, if I were to have voted no, it would be because, hey, bro, like, it's not about the face on the shirt. It's about, we want to keep you level-headed as you go on this journey of like, you know, like making it there. So I think that would be the reason. There are people that just wouldn't do it for whatever reason, but I think the majority of people close to you, it would be kind of the thing like, hey, if everyone on YouTube, or if this guy gets like 20,000 subscribers and they're all like on his side, like fans, I use it loosely. Like, we don't want to be fans. We want to be critiquing him. We want to be correcting him. We want to be helping him. I think that's the main reason.
And that's extremely important given the modern kind of world and the climate and stuff like that, and the kind of attention. So this is, do you remember the Coney 2012 video?
No.
So this was like one of the first things that went crazy viral on the internet. Okay. So let me see if it's still on there. There's a reason why I'm sharing this, by the way. It's not an accident. So this was a video that was, it was essentially had to do with like human trafficking, child trafficking, and stuff like that. Okay. It was made by Invisible Children. Now, I'm looking at it. Invisible Children is the organization. They made like a trailer against this guy Coney, who was like trafficking children and making them child soldiers and stuff like that in Africa.
Okay.
Now, Invisible Children on YouTube has 229,000 subscribers now. But think 2012, they came up with this video. This video is 10 years ago. Actually, I'm looking at the numbers right now. 10 years ago, it's got 103 million views. So it went crazy viral. And so the video comes out and everything. And then the guy who was the president, and I don't know if he still is, he might still be, and I hope he's recovered. But like a couple of weeks later, this guy had like a complete mental breakdown. Like he was I think he was in the streets with like, and he's a believing guy, professing believing guy, was on the streets with like his underwear, kind of like running around screaming crazy stuff. Like I think he had to be hospitalized and stuff, and very sad. And I know someone who knows this guy personally, and I saw that person and I said, hey, like, do you know what happened? And he said he essentially like broke, because after the way that video went viral, the amount of like invitations to be on like CNN and Fox News and like
Yeah.
crazy, like national, global exposure, the amount of pressure that came towards him, plus, by the way, a bunch of criticism, like a ridiculous amount of criticism saying this is false, this guy's no longer around, he's no longer in Uganda, I think it was, and just like really went nuts and really broke the guy. And that was scary, because these are, again, I've always been into media stuff, like social media. I was on Twitter like very, very early. I was on Twitter when you would text in your tweets.
Yeah.
Okay, like there was no Twitter app. And I've always been into this stuff. Like when, like the Periscope thing, I jumped on it. And so, but it was kind of crazy that I've always thought, like, what does that look like? Because I'll post up a video and even just getting a bunch of negative stuff, like people commenting like, you're stupid, you don't know what you're talking about. Probably the video that I have that has the most amount of like random comments that I just kind of ignore is the one where it's a short about you are not the church. And dude, the amount of women that are in there that are claiming to be the bride of Christ. Sorry, you are not the church. You are not the bride of Christ. There's a bunch of people in there saying, oh, there's a prophetic word. I received the prophetic word. I'm the bride of Jesus. Like, I'm just like, this is nuts. It's crazy stuff. But even the negative comments that come at you, if you pay too much attention to that, and I know Joe Rogan's talked about this, and I get it. Like there's people who just don't pay attention to that stuff. That stuff could really, really break. People are ruthless on the
Yeah.
internet. You're like a YouTube connoisseur, by the way.
Yeah. So what I was gonna say to that is like this is actually a really important topic, because if you think about it, like if you go back 20, 30 years, right? If someone wants to become whatever, a talk show host or someone popular on TV, or that's their passion, right? You got to go through a bunch of hoops to get there,
Oh
right?
man.
Like you got to go to school, and then you got to be signed by somebody, and then you got to be interesting, and then they put you to classes, they teach you how to take criticism, teach you how to respond. If media comes up to you, how do you respond to media? If there's like some kind of weird thing that happens into your life, how do you respond? How do the tabloids catch it? Like there's all this stuff, right? So this person, by the time they come to a place where they're on TV and they're receiving some kind of criticism, well, they already have the training to deal with that, right?
Yeah.
But in this world, you can literally, now it's your passion to do this, right? Apologia Center. This is a sort of a calling, but you can be a random kid that puts out some video about some opinion you have on some social topic. You have 4 subscribers. Now your video has 3 million views.
Yeah.
People can find your location, where you live, where you went to school, who your mom is, your dad is, all this information in like 30 minutes, and just call you out and destroy your life. And you see this happening all the
Yeah.
time. They recently did this to the um, libs of TikTok girl. I don't know if you
Yeah,
remember that.
I've heard. Yeah.
So she was anonymous. Nobody knew who she was. Nobody knew this person was even a girl. And then somebody somehow like hacked her information, and they found out who she was, where she lived, her address. So then she quickly had to come out and basically say, "Hi, this is me. Yeah, they were right, but stop hating." So it's
Hmm.
like it's a scary world when it comes to like social media and how
Correct.
quickly you can get popular these days. So
So
you need friends like that, to keep you
always,
balanced, keep you level-headed. Dude, this is
yeah,
important.
yeah. I got friends who'll tell me to shut up and sit down, like it, and I will not get offended. It would be like, okay, you probably are seeing something that I'm not seeing, and I really
Yeah,
need that. I'll give you an example.
yeah.
I'll give you a couple of examples. One from the sports world, and then one from John Clash, who's been on this channel. I've been on this channel. We're doing a bunch of different stuff together. John put out a video. I've talked about this in previous streams the last couple of days. John put out a video a couple of weeks ago, and then it was a short. It's blown his channel up, right? So I'm looking at it right now. It's got 3.3 million views, and his channel has gone from 7,000 subscribers to 20. It's 19,800 right now. Probably by the end of the day,
Wow.
he's gonna hit 20,000 easy. So, but that's like in a matter of like Monday till today. Right? It's crazy as to like how this stuff can go quickly and fast, and then you got to have people around you who just go, hey, come back, bro, come back. The other thing is how like trying to aim for success and then getting rejected or something like that can affect you. So I know you're not a soccer guy, you're a basketball guy, and we watched some egg toss the other day together. That's football for the rest of you guys. But Liverpool has been doing very poorly this year. And everybody's kind of like, what's going on? No, this is a life lesson. But everybody's going, what's going on? So Sako and I are Liverpool fans, and we were talking about it the other day. Because it's the same team as last year. Last year, this team made it to every single final. Okay? They won 2 and then got second place in the league by 1 point. And then they lost the other one. One of the players came out and said, hey, it's very difficult. Thiago, he said it's very difficult. The kind of season we had last year, and not counting that, like the last 4 or 5 years, they've been pretty successful. But like to do that last year and then to lose in those circumstances and like barely get there, but not really, to follow that up again. These guys are professional athletes. Every single day they go into work, they train. They've done this for their entire life. But the psychology of it, the psychological aspect of like just you work for a whole year to achieve something, and then you lose because of like 3 minutes in a game, 3 bad minutes in a game. Like you gotta be really, really solid when it comes to that. And like we see this maybe on a smaller scale. Tom, for those who do not know, and I'm sure a lot of you guys don't, Tom is a phenomenal musician. He's a great worship leader. Like Tom, you've prepared worship music and prepared yourself throughout the week and stuff like that. That's in prayer and various kinds of preparations, obviously in regards to songs and all that stuff. Like I prepared sermons and stuff like that. And you show up to church and then like there's like 5 people there.
Yeah, exactly.
Like that messes with your emotions. It's very difficult in that situation. Say, I'm still going to do it the way I was going to do it if there is 100 people here. But I'll tell you this, the kind of high you would get and excitement if you showed up and there was like 10,000 people sitting there. In that sense, I would think that would be more difficult to control yourself, to bring yourself down and say, I'm just going to do what I was going to do, than if there's like nobody there and you've showed up, or like, you expect 40 people there and there's like 5 people there. Because then you go off of the crowd. Like that sort of success is very difficult to manage. So it is like our lives are, we have extensions of our lives on the internet, and it could be that we just put something out there and it just goes crazy viral, and then you need people, right? I mean, we both have pretty A-type personality wives who are not afraid to tell us what they're thinking, which it's by God's grace that He's given us women like this, because we would. Anything else, it would be like we would be like super dominant in any situation. Not that we're not, but it helps us balance things out and be more.
This is why we have to keep a beard, to make sure somehow we can express our manhood through this.
So
through these very
we have beards, so you
wives.
can tell the difference between our wives and us, because we're so good.
That's amazing.
So my kids are having a conversation the other day, and then Vahagan, the youngest one, goes, "I have a beard," and Avo goes, "No, you don't." But then Avo goes, "But I have a mustache." right? And and then he turns to Nari and goes, Nari, you have a mustache too, my daughter.
Oh man.
And and then Vagan goes, no, she doesn't. Women can't grow beards. It's just these are
You'd
kids
be
having a
surprised.
conversation. Yeah, you'd be surprised. I was like, Vagan, man. This 4-year-old is very old school, right?
That's funny.
Let me jump
So I
into
have a
some comments. Yeah,
I
yeah,
have a
go.
question. I have a question for you. So I was thinking about this. Like, obviously, like you can say some crazy, like outlandish, like stuff on YouTube and like get your video trending
Oh
better,
man,
right?
yeah,
So if you so let's say you're like, I don't care, like let's say you're like, I don't have some corporate position, I don't have any accountability where my money is connected to, let's say, my 9 to 5 job. I
hmm
can be as brash as I want out here, right? I can say like something crazy and get the views. How do you balance that between
oh man,
like being honest but not ever like purposely like pushing that line or purposely passing that red line to get into the controversial side just for the sake of being controversial and getting views?
yeah,
You know, because I feel like I see a lot of people, like I see people, especially people that are not like very up there in subscribers, like when they're talking, I'm like, dude, I can see that you're trying to be unnecessarily harsh just to get a bigger audience.
yeah.
Maybe it works, I don't know, but it's like, would I do that? Like, me knowing my own personality, would I actually show people some false version of myself in order to kind of get more viewers or get a bigger audience,
Yeah.
or would I just be honest, and sometimes that honesty is going to lead to a very like strong opinion, and sometimes that honesty is going to lead people to be like, wow, this guy's actually pretty decent guy, he's not crazy, you know? So it's like, where do you keep that balance, you know?
So I'll give you a couple of examples that's uh, I reason through on a daily basis. Everybody knows in the Christian space on YouTube, if you make reaction videos to like mega church pastors and stuff like that, like if you make a video, Joel Osteen is kind of notorious for shutting videos down if people talk about him. They actually, like Lakewood will send them copyright strikes and all this stuff. I mean, you can talk about him, but if you play any one of his videos and stuff like that and react to it, you probably get a reaction from them. Mike Winger, actually, there was a whole issue that happened with him and him reacting. And Mike Winger is like one of the nicest guys on this. So it's like I sit there and I go, do I need to react to that? I'm not sure, like whether it accomplishes the purposes. I know I can get views, I can get subscribers, but whether it accomplishes the purposes that my channel is set up for. So I run through that. I check my motives in my heart
Hmm.
very, very often. Like, why do I want to do that? Why do I want to respond? Like, this is like, think about the Andrew Tate stuff. It's like the only reason I respond to Andrew Tate is because people are listening to him. He's talking nonsense, especially when he's talking about Christianity. Like, I'm not going to go out there. Like, I can make a video about him every other day with like crazy stuff he said, but I don't. I only react to the stuff that has to do with Christianity and religion, maybe in general. Then I go, okay, this is something up my alley. I have something to say about it. I think he's wrong. And I also see people around me saying, hey, we really like this guy and all this, especially like much younger guys, like 12, 13-year-olds that are being influenced by this stuff. So there's that. The way I check it is I sit on it. I sit on the idea. Like, I don't immediately react. Like, I see something trending and I know
Yeah.
this really goes against the way you're supposed to do this, for the algorithm to love you, right? Is that something's trending, you jump on it really quickly, you make stuff, and then hopefully you'll jump into that kind of wave, and then it'll like kick into gear. But I'll sit on it. I'm telling you, like, there's a video I've been meaning to make, and I haven't made it because I keep wanting to make it. Like, I have everything set up. Now, again, I have made the decision I am going to make it, but if I sit down to make it and I'm like, I don't feel like really, right now it's not the right time or something like that, I won't make it.
Yeah.
And so I check that stuff. If I'm unsure, I'll talk to you guys. I'll talk to friends. I'll ask them for their opinions. Like, should I
Look,
not?
to to give you an example, like when that 2016, 2015, 2016 election was happening, right?
Hmm.
I was like, my political what do you call it? My political passion just like enhanced to a level I didn't know could exist. Like I went from being generally interested in politics, have been all my life. I actually, fun fact, I wore a backpack in high school, regular JanSport backpack, and in the back I wrote with like marker John McCain. 2012 or 12 8 or whatever it was. Like I actually supported John McCain at one point. But anyways, so
You
when
were
the
young.
yeah. So when the Trump election happened, I found myself, you would get these like videos thrown out there on Twitter. You open Twitter, first thing that comes, right? Trending for you, right? Trump is this. This person said this. FBI investigates this. Liberal lady screams in the
Yeah,
middle
yeah,
of the street. So you got all these crazy things happening, and like my first reaction was just to react. Like I would take the video, screen recorded, put it on my Instagram post. Look at these morons, like
yeah,
screaming in the middle of the street. Look at these criminals. And I realized the more I was doing this, it was not that there was not truth in what I was saying, or it wasn't actually what I believed, but it was kind of to like garner a response from people. I
yeah.
was like, as a matter of fact, sometimes when I would post, I was posting with a person in mind.
Hmm.
And I was like, what, this is becoming dangerous, because now I'm not just like trying to give like my political opinion or my ideology or help people like kind of understand where I'm coming from. Now I'm just being rash. Now I'm just going at it for the sake of going at it, gloves on, ready to go, you know? And I realized like during that second election cycle, when first of all I started caring a little less because
Yeah,
of so much that had happened. Ben Shapiro says something like, you got Trump fatigue, just political
yeah,
fatigue in general, right? so
yeah,
so when that happened, I started just like pulling back, posting less, still looking it up, and I realized, man, like a lot of these things, if I took a second to think about it, I probably wouldn't post,
hmm.
or I would change the way I posted, or I would change the way I thought about these people.
Yeah,
And I realized that like now, like if I have someone in mind, I'd rather just kind of have dialogue with them normally and not make myself into something that I'm not in order to garner a greater response.
yeah,
Like if for example, if a hot topic comes up, right, about like abortion, for example, right, and I can post something aggressive on abortion, the person can respond to me saying, I can't believe this is what you believe, and I can say something like, I can't believe you like to kill babies, or
yeah.
you support killing, and then that's it. Like that's it.
Conversation
It's a
is done.
wrap. The conversation. But now I realize, like, hey, my friend, like I realized you shared this post. What's the reason, like, you take this stance?
Hmm.
Like, what is it that makes you lean this way and not the other way? And then once you start that kind of conversation, you realize, man, like there are some things that this person doesn't even know, and
Correct.
you just have a better chance. You have a better shot at actually expressing your view in a way where this person receives something, and maybe in a Steven Crowder crazy world changes their mind, right? Like
Yeah,
like seriously. So that's why I asked you the question, is because sometimes I feel like
yeah.
you can throw stuff out there that just gets that response and maybe blows up,
You know,
but
in,
then
in
at the end of the
reality,
day,
so
yeah, go
I
ahead.
want to. I don't want to make it. I don't want to like over spiritualize it and stuff like that. But one of the first and foremost, it has to do with character maturity. This is something that all humans, I think, have access to. Right? You can be a mature individual. So it helps that I'm older. Like I would not have reacted this way if I was like 21, 22 years old. It's just so that's one of them. Age, having people around you that are solid and will call you um, out. So I'll give you an example. I made a video. I think I took this down. I'm not sure whether it's taken down on all the platforms, but only one of them. But somebody who is very close to me said, "Hey, I know you. I know your personality, but that kind of came off like very snarky and stuff. You
Hmm.
should take it down." Like I took it down that night. And I disagreed with him, by the way. I don't think it made me look snarky, but I respect this person enough that his advice would do that. Okay. Just his observation. Um, so there's age, there's that, there's personal maturity. I think reading and just interacting, watching, listening to people who are like way smarter than you it helps. Because if you're listening to just like the general kind of your peers, it's crazy. So I'll give you an example. Today, someone sent me a message on Instagram saying, "Hey, did you check out this statue that was built? It's like a statue. It's like a demonic statue to like abortion." And I was like, "This is just like at a courthouse." And I was like, "This is just weird." Like, and the statue is like a woman standing there, and she's got like braided hair that kind of looks like it's a goat's horns.
Yeah.
And so I was like, "Where did you see this?" He was like, "Oh, Matt Walsh posted it." So I did like a very basic kind of search and stuff like that, and I found out no, it has nothing to do with like respecting abortion and stuff like that. It's like at a courthouse to honor Ginsburg, who passed away.
Mm.
It's just a bad statue. It's got like really wiggly. They're calling it like a Medusa statue and stuff. So it's the thing is that people are calling it that, like it's. But the way he worded it was like, oh, this is like an idol kind of thing, and I was like, no, it's not. It's just a bad statue, like that MLK statue that I just made. Like everybody makes fun of that statue. It's a bad statue. And it's like it takes some research, right? It takes like 5-10 minutes of just like looking around and then getting past all the like crazy stuff that people are saying, getting to the truth and saying, should I actually react or respond or have a comment on this, or it's just like people are just uninformed. So that helps. Reading folks and listening to folks that are smarter than you helps, because sometimes I react to things and then I'll listen to someone else talking about it who's much smarter than me, and they're like, "Well, there's this and there's that and there's that," and I'm like, "Oh yeah, I probably shouldn't have had that immediate reaction to that." I didn't. It's not a big issue. It's not that big of an issue that I thought it was. So yeah,
Yeah.
there's something here that's interesting that Ashley brought up. I want to comment. So Ashley said YouTube security is a huge issue. Lots of creators I work with have lots of personal security issue. It's seriously no joke. By the way, this has to do with like people finding out your address and where you live and all that stuff. David Azizian says these are two of the very best in all of LA County. I'm suspecting he's saying that in a unique accent.
I do too. Yeah,
So
that joke has been running within our friend group for a few weeks now.
in my head, I read that in that accent.
Yeah.
I think good rule of thumb, Ashley says, is to not participate in the rage bait. I don't follow people who only perpetuate that. Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, no, I agree. Listen, this leads me to something else, kind of within the same topic. But it's look, when I search for Christian like viewpoints when it comes to anything, theology, philosophy, politics, social issues, all of that, right? I see this like lack of it on YouTube. I don't know how to explain it to you. Like, I'm not talking about the theology part. I feel like we have that covered well. There are a lot of channels I come across when searching the topic where it's like one guy with like 300 subscribers that's giving a very good
Correct.
theological point, and I'm like, wow, this guy, 300 subscribers, someone should hear this guy more because he's very smart, right? Or even other people here and there, right?
Correct.
But I feel like one thing we're lacking, and I feel like where we're falling behind, especially as Christians, is like social issues, man. And I don't mean social issues like we don't have opinions on it. I feel like it's either or. So you either got Christian like Christian YouTubers who are very interested in theology, the church history, and then you got like people who claim to be Christians but are Republicans, conservatives that are speaking on all the social issues that these other guys on the other side actually probably know. So you got like these guys just on the right wing media that are every social issue, whether it's abortion, gay marriage, whatever it is, the Supreme Court, transgenderism, whatever the issue is, right? They're talking on it, like they're speaking on that stuff. And then you got these Christians on YouTube. Like I don't hear them, man. Like they're not out there. That's why I've encouraged you. Like I've two things. One of them is I encourage you to continue like integrating the social stuff you do with
Right.
your philosophy and theology, and you have been doing that, sharing these videos, like speaking on Andrew Tate, speaking on the what it means to be a woman. But also my question is, how do you do it successfully as a Christian? It doesn't have to be on YouTube, it doesn't have to be
Mm.
um,
Like
on
how do you
social media.
develop that?
Like how do you develop that character and kind of like that desire to not shy away from these social issues that are coming up in our world just because it might get you either whatever banned or get you in trouble with your work or whatever the consequence is. Like I feel like a lot of us are cowering and silencing ourselves because we're just scared of the repercussions. And like you've always said, Arthur, in the past, like we got families to take care of, man. Like we got mouths to feed. It can't just be here's my Bible, every social issue, boom, and now you're fired from your job, you're removed from every platform. So like how do you keep that balance, and
Yeah.
how do you encourage young believers to have that um I would say that zeal and that passion to go out there and talk about these issues that are not just political, but they have to do with our daily lives, our walk as Christians, and things of that sort.
Yeah. So, that's loaded. Um, one of the things is people need to have a good basis, like the foundations of their Christian philosophy down. And I don't like, this is not just theological. So there's like a lot of Christians that I've come across, and they think when you talk about ethics, you just got to quote the Bible. That's just not true. Like, as a matter of fact, there's multiple views of Christian ethics amongst Christians, right? So, like, somebody should know where they're approaching the subjects of, because essentially all social issues are going to boil down to ethics, right? They're generally ethical questions. So the foundation of their, like, they need to know what they're down. Like, whatever, let's just say someone believes in virtue ethics, or somebody believes in like, I've met a lot of Christians that believe in utilitarianism, which I think it's like, bro, you haven't really thought through this. You just saying that stuff because it seems right to you. You've like picked it up. But so read ethics works written by Christians, non-Christians, kind of the dialogue, what's supposed to happen in that kind of a conversation. The other thing is, always ask yourself if what you're about to say, if there's a better way of saying it. If you say a bunch of true stuff, but you say it in a bad tone, and you say it in like you look like you're completely out of control when you're saying it, nobody's going to listen to you. People are going to think you're like some crazy maniac who's just yelling a bunch of stuff out. So presentation matters, and I don't mean this in a manipulative sense. I mean, like, be an articulate individual about what you're saying. Be honest. If somebody asks a question, say, no, I don't know. Let me look it up. That's a good response, or whatever like that, right? Whether it be things like euthanasia or abortion, or even like whether weed should be legalized or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
And then realizing that if your answer seems too black and white, and like if in your mind the answer to that very difficult question is very simple, you probably haven't thought about it very deeply. Here's what I would say. Maybe you haven't read the best argument from the other side.
Yeah.
If you think you can just like come across any question and then you're like, oh, I got the answer here, bam, bam, this, that, and you know yourself best. You know how much you've read. You know how much you've listened to. You know how much research you've done and anything. If it seems too easy, it probably you haven't done the work. So what I would say is maybe relax, go back and do the work, read, study, especially if you're a Christian, read Christians who disagree with each other. See why they're disagreeing with each other. Because there is a reason, and it is not enough, and this gets me really upset, for you to just immediately think the opposition is not a Christian. It is not enough. That is a cop-out. It's a straw man argument. There's a bunch of fallacies I can name, right? Like, poisoning the well, X, Y, and Z. It's like, oh, this guy disagrees with me. And then my immediate response is, he's probably not a Christian.
Yeah.
So let's just bring the abortion subject up because I'm very passionate about it. And I think abortion is murder. I think it's wrong. I think it should be illegal, whatever. You can go down the list of those talking points. But if I come across someone who's a Christian who says, no, I think abortion should be allowed. I think it's wrong personally, but I think it should be allowed. Like, I personally think that that's not a very strong view. But then I ask them questions. I go, hey, let's talk a bit more about this. And then you come across to understand that they actually think like we shouldn't be involved in politics or something like their theology sets them up like that. Or if they make some kind of a claim like, hey, the church and the state are like in too much cahoots, and that's not a good thing for the church, which I would agree on, by the way. So there's a number of things that I would agree on, and then their point becomes a bit nuanced. I could still disagree with them, and I still do disagree with them. But at the very least, I understand their position. Here's an example of a conversation. I made this comment and jokingly, but the person hasn't responded to me. And the person's a great, great guy. I know him. I know him well. I'm trying to find it. Why is it that in Twitter, when you comment on something or you like something, you just start getting their things pop up?
Yeah.
I've looked at this fake Donald Trump tweets a couple of times, and then now every time I open up Twitter, there's that thing's popped up. I gotta find this. Okay, here it is. It's actually I would agree with generally, but I try to be like snarky about it. This is from Preston Sprinkle, by the way, Dr. Preston Sprinkle. Preston does work in areas that a lot of Christians don't, and I disagree with a number of his views. But I've had personal conversations with him. The guy, I wish I could have him on this podcast. He's really preoccupied and stuff. I've asked him, but he wrote this quote. He wrote, "Jesus wasn't a political centrist, nor was he left or right, because Jesus didn't adopt the political categories handed to him by Rome or the Jewish sects. He created his own categories, determined by the upside-down empire he was establishing." Like, now, I agree with that. But the reason why I made this snarky comment was because, when people misunderstand you, like they go, you remember that famous Jordan Peterson clip where it's like, what you're trying to say is, and so I wrote, so what you're saying is Jesus was an imperialist. Because this is the sort of dialogue kind of that happens in our, like you try to say something else and then somebody goes, what you're trying to say is, it's like, well, he's not using imperialist in that kind of sense. And I agree with him. Jesus was establishing his own kingdom. And has been. And regardless what anything falls, ultimately it's going to give homage to the kingdom of Jesus. But like, I know him, I've talked to him, I know the nuances he makes in the various positions, right? Whether it be like political disengagement, or whether it be like Christians being way too committed, like we need to take a couple of steps back. When you do that stuff, going back to your original question, it's like, how do you kind of figure this out? Listen to people, especially if they're a part of your own community, and then tell them, give me the best argument you have for this.
Yeah.
Now, the best argument they might have for it might be really weak, actually. But at the very least, you know what the best argument is, and then you know how to reason through it, and then you have like 1 or 2 or 3 responses to that. Like that would be really cool and healthy and helpful for like even the church. But it would be, I think this would be a really cool place for us to kind of show the rest of the world, the Christian community, to show the rest of the world. Like, hey, we can have these dialogues, because we do live in a day and time where like you can't find nuanced positions. Everyone's really like on opposite sides.
I agree. But what makes those kind of like, I don't know the quote. I somehow remember seeing it somewhere you posted or shared. But what bothers me stuff like that, and I gotta drop in like 2 minutes because I gotta go pick up my kid from childcare. It's those kind of comments without understanding the nuances that people believes causes confusion. Like, for example, if I heard a comment like that, right? Like, Jesus is not a political, like he's not a Republican or Democrat, he's not left or right. That kind of stuff bothers me, and I might be, I might be wrong for thinking that, because I might be applying our current political kind of culture or political setting to Christ, which is unfair. But Jesus was not left. Okay, Jesus was not supportive of any current leftist policies socially that these people. I'm not saying this guy, not this Preston guy, but generally people who make those kind of comments. He was not supporting of any of that. And even the ones that they're pretty close in he was supportive of. Like for example, Jesus sounds like a socialist and stuff. Even that's off. Even that's not true. It's like no, Jesus doesn't sound like a socialist. You sound like you have some things that Jesus also had, which is like love and
Correct.
grace and giving to people and being kind and sharing your possessions. It's not that Jesus is like you or your one social, let's say, category that you have some kind of excitement in. It's that you have some of Jesus's nature and God's image in you, and there are things you like to do. Like if your neighbor is hurting or struggling, you'll give him something. Like Jesus is not like you. You're like Jesus sometimes. But these kind
Correct.
of like overarching like statements, like Jesus is not Republican, Jesus is not political, Jesus is not left, or Jesus is not left, and Jesus is not right. Yeah, maybe not in this certain like context of our current political structure. Yeah, Jesus would not come in like say I'm a Republican, but
Correct.
still, even in this time, the things we believe, the things we hold to, whether it comes to social issues, whether it comes to fiscal issues, whether it comes to issues of that pertain to family, issues that pertain to justice, that pertain to equality, even in these issues, I think the Christian wins the argument. The conservative Christian wins the argument that yeah, not everything we hold on to probably Jesus would hold on to. Like I'm not saying Jesus would come out like with a AR-15 waving and
Yeah.
going like gun rights for all, but still there is a common understanding that Jesus would never be a leftist. And I feel like these kind of like statements like Jesus is left neither left nor right, although it's true like you said, without actually clarifying and explaining what you mean, it gives people on the left political ideological side the excuse to say these people who claim to be Christians and are conservatives are not like Jesus. They
Mm.
have nothing to do with Jesus. And to me, bro, that sounds dangerous. And I think if we give into that kind of commentary, again, not specifically on this
Correct.
quote you gave, but just generally thinking about those kind of quotes, that's where I see the
Well,
danger.
here I'll give you man, because we gotta go. But I was at a certain Bible college, and there was somebody in the library, and they were in conversations and stuff. And this guy kind of openly made a statement like, "Oh, I'm a socialist," and this is a Bible college, by the way. And so I pulled him aside. I said, "Hey, man, do you know like the details of this stuff?" And he was going a very similar kind of route, and I kind of let him have it because look, I've seen socialism, I've seen communism, right? And so I kind of broke it down to him, and I said, look, the reality is, this is the question we need to ask: do our views align with Jesus?
Hmm.
Right? Not whether Jesus agrees with our views. Right? That's not the way it goes. Now, there's a plenty of things that I think like liberals say. So liberals say about like social welfare, caring for people, and all this stuff. But I think those things are already biblical. Like I think there should be a social safety net system. How much is where we can disagree on. Right?
Exactly.
Which would maybe put me at odds with like conservative Republicans who are like, no, put yourself up from your bootstrap. Then I would be like, you disagree with the God of the Bible. So you become a prophetic voice amongst your own folks. But these things that these other guys are saying that are right, you go, they're right not because you're saying it like you were saying, but they're right because they're right. You just happen to be right on this issue. And
Exactly.
if we're talking about like freedom and not being forced to do certain things that conservatives like to speak about, then I would say you're right because that's right. That's the way God intended things to be, personal autonomy and so on and so forth. Those are good, but don't take it overboard because you do have a certain kind of responsibility in your social
Amen. Yeah.
existence. So the Christian, in my mind, regardless of kind of where we lean and stuff like that, the Christian ought to be a prophetic voice in the midst of wherever they are. My issue with both Republicans and let me just say conservatives and liberals, Christians, is when you realize you've stopped being that prophetic voice.
Yeah.
Like we ought to make everyone uneasy, including ourselves. Like that's just the reality of it. Like when we're talking amongst our friends and stuff like that, there ought to be things where it's convicting. It's like, well, here's what the Bible says. It's like, oh man, I might need to change my mind on this issue, or I might need to balance it out a bit because I've been influenced by the world too much.
And I agree with that. And if you do that naturally, that gives you credibility. Meaning, like, for example, if you say if the left is saying look, you guys don't care about our environment enough. You
Yeah,
don't even look at environmental issues. You don't even care to research, because I guarantee you 99% of conservatives, throwing a random number out there, but don't actually go there and do deep research on like climate change and what's going on. But it's like so when they say stuff like that, and you say, you know what, you might be right on this topic, and there's some kind level of like responsibility we have as people, especially as Christians, that we need to take care of our earth, we need to care for it, we need to treat it as if God gave this to us to flourish in it, and also not just
correct.
like break it down, right? Destroy it. So that's genuine uh, conviction, and it gives you genuine credibility. Meaning of, hey, look, this person is a Christian. Arthur's a Christian, but when it comes to the issue of climate change, he just doesn't just shove it back in my face because it doesn't fit with his political ideology. But you got to be careful in that not to go overboard. Meaning you can't start looking at like Christians and purposely trying to find issues you have with something that they believe in
Yeah,
just to tell the left, look, this guy is a moron. I'm with you on this. Oh, by the way, I'm also with you on this. By the way, I'm also with you on this. And then all of a sudden, now you've become like this political like this like that puppet character for the left, where they just place you wherever they need when they need to make a point. And for your own people, or for the people that actually believe in what you believe in and would stand for you, you've turned them off against you. And I've seen this done, whatever, in the music industry, in the just in popular culture, with pastors, with like popular people out there, like famous
correct.
Christians. I've seen this happen, where it's like, listen, man, you can genuinely have a conviction that your side is wrong on something, and you can get genuine credibility for that from everyone. But don't go out there and try to like completely change what you believe in or what scripture stands for, just to get some applause from people that just don't care about you to the extent yet you hope they will.
Yeah, and the underlying
Um,
philosophies and ideologies underneath it are
yeah,
are
yeah.
are very much at odds with what
Hmm.
you actually believe in and
With what
stand
you
for.
actually believe. Yep.
Like, don't throw your own family members under the bus. Like, you can correct your own family members,
Yeah.
right? But you don't have to prove yourself to anyone by
No.
going, hey, look at these guys. They're my family members, but they're so wrong and messed up and all this stuff. It's like, we get it. Everybody's messed up. It's not like the camp you're going into is like got everything figured out. Like, what's going to
Yeah.
happen in 5 years' time? You're going to turn around and say, hey, look at these guys. I was a part of this camp. They're all really messed
Yeah.
up and stuff like that. It's like just having a normal, balanced view on these things, and then just being open to be corrected. Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
that's what it really comes down to. You got to go. You got to go
Hey,
and
listen, bro. Thanks for
charge.
having me
Hey,
on.
thanks for jumping
I
on.
appreciate it,
Appreciate it.
man. God
Yeah.
bless you. Keep doing
Thank
what
you.
you do. See you tonight. Take care,
See ya.
brother.
See ya. Bye. So, ladies and gentlemen, those are the sorts of conversations we have when we hang out with our friends. He was not joking when he said this is just when he was talking about me. He said this is just him, but this is just us, like always, all the time. A couple of weeks ago, after church, there was a couple of things that I disagreed with when it came to the sermon, and it's not like I disagreed with it because it's a legitimate different position that different theologians take, and not the application. The application was right on. And then we were hanging out and talking about it, and somebody else came, and he was like, "Man, you guys do this all the time." This person doesn't normally hang out with us. I said, "Yeah." He said, "It's like a Bible study after." Excuse me. He said, "It's like a Bible study after church service." I said, "Yep." That's when you have a group of folks that want to know God and understand His Word for what it says. You're bound to have these things. This is exactly what it means when it speaks about iron sharpening iron. This is the sort of stuff. Hang up, guys. So yeah, thanks for calling in, Tom. Appreciate it. How long have we been on? What are we at? We're at an hour and 35 minutes. If anybody else wants to call in, you're more than welcome to. I think we can keep it on. If you guys don't, we'll turn it off, but we can keep it on for another like 25 minutes or so. We can go till 3. This is fellowship. This is why we shouldn't uniquely sorry, I'm trying to figure out. There's some spelling stuff. Come back. Thank you. Focus. This is why we shouldn't unequally yoke ourselves. Correct. Amen. Let's go, folks. Falling asleep on me. Politics, eh? I don't know. I don't understand. And we have to be involved in politics. I don't think there's a way we can not be involved in politics. So even separatist groups, right, that say we shouldn't be involved in politics. I'm talking about the Christian sort. They end up establishing their own communities and developing their own rules and kind of engagement. They're not involved in politics in the sense of like voting and being involved, whatever, running for office and stuff like that. But like think about the Amish. Like that comes to my mind. It's like there's lots of politics that are happening within the Amish community. So you can't run away from it. So yeah. How did you meet Tomek? So I've known Tomek since he was, no, he was in high school, not junior high. He was one of those younger guys from a different church that I interacted with as much as I could, but it wasn't really like we didn't really get that close till I got back from Armenia. I mean, we'd hung out and spent time together and stuff like that, but you know, he grew up and matured and got married, and and I went to Armenia and got back, and then he had come to our church a couple times before that, and then leading worship, and then ended up when I got back, he was there, and I said, hey, we said, not I, but we essentially said, why don't you just come on board? Like, just start attending our church. And he didn't have one. He wasn't going to church, so he was going to churches, but he wasn't like really committed to a church family. And then so yeah, after that we've just grown in our relationship with each other, and it's cool. It's cool seeing his growing family and him growing as a person. Just awesome friendships. Ashley says, my family is very left and they get over emotional every time anything political comes up, so I avoid the convo with them. Is that wrong of me? No, I don't think I that's wrong of you. I think there are legitimate situations where we just avoid talking to certain people about certain subjects, because if they're the ones who can't really control themselves, if they're the ones who kind of turn it into a screaming and shouting match and stuff like that. Here's one thing I would say. A lot of people I've realized on the left will conflate and assume kind of your politics with your relationship with Jesus. And they think, well, if I'm not going to accept their political views, then I'm not going to accept Jesus. And I try not to, I try to distinguish those things as much as possible in this sense, that the primary issue has to do with Jesus and your relationship with Jesus. Because the way I see it is, once somebody decides to follow Jesus and gives their life to Jesus, then they're going to have to go back as they read the scriptures and as they study what it means to be a Christian. They're going to have to go back and look at there and reevaluate whether their political stances goes along with what Jesus says. So I never try to put the political issues. Like if that's the stuff they're having issues with, I won't even have the conversation. I prefer to have a conversation with folks about Jesus. The political stuff will come out of the more foundational stuff. Politics is not foundational. Politics is downstream from your worldview. Once your worldview is established, then your politics will follow. It's kind of like a logical deduction. And that's essentially what I think Tomek was saying is like, I can't picture Jesus, being in line and fully committed to the left in America, right? Because the worldview that Jesus has and the worldview that the left in America has are completely different worldviews. Now, the worldview the right has is closer in its alignment to the worldview of Jesus. It's not one for one, because there's plenty of stuff that the right has that is often wrong. And so this is where the Christian needs to come in and say, we can actually influence that because we share a common worldview, as opposed to the other side, the worldview is not as common, or it's not common at all. Now, there will be pushback to that, obviously, but at least that's where the conversation is and should be. Okay. Any one of these things, it's always an outworking of your worldview. You can't escape that. Hey, are you accepting callers or the stream ending? If you want to call, you can call in. You're more than welcome to call in. When I was first saved, I was very confrontational. You weren't alone. A lot of us were. But as time goes on, I'm more non-confrontational, except with certain issues like the deity of Jesus and whatnot. Yeah, I think we all go through a learning experience there and growth and all that. So yeah, I think that's an opinion that Jesus would lean Republican. Well, obviously it's an opinion. But notice I didn't say Republican. I said conservative. Republicans are a form of conservatism, I guess. Hang on, Emma. Let me bring you in. What's up, bro?
Hey, can you hear me?
Yes.
Right on, right on. Man, I wish I heard that conversation.
Yeah, you should go back and listen to it from the beginning, because I read a quote specifically that at least part of that conversation was from that. What did you say here? You said okay, let me ask you that. You asked Tomek that question. Let me ask you that. It's easy to ask other people questions. It's not as easy when people ask you those questions.
Don't ask me that.
Do you believe Jesus would stand for the left, the right, or neither?
I don't know. Honestly, I think that's a very difficult question to tackle, because there are things that I'm thinking where I could be miscategorizing them. I could, like, a quick thought would be, well, Jesus fed the 5,000, he was an immigrant and all this stuff, and it sounds leftist, but I could be miscategorizing it and not thinking about it clearly. That's just a quick response, like.
How was Jesus an immigrant?
Well, he had to go to Egypt, remember? When he was.
Yes, so?
What do you mean?
These are the stuff that I have issues with. It's like, if I go back to Armenia, am I an immigrant? It's like I was born there. It doesn't seem to me that it fits the category of the way we understand immigrants. I suppose if a Hispanic guy is born in the United States and goes to Mexico, there's a Mexican guy, not Hispanic, Mexican guy born in America, goes back to Mexico, lives like 5-6 years of his life in Mexico, and then comes back to America. Like, he's not an immigrant.
He's not. That's not what I meant. So I meant when he goes to Egypt,
he's an immigrant in Egypt.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Okay.
But again, these are just quick thoughts. They're not well thought out, educated thoughts.
Yeah.
They're just quick things I hear. Like, this is what the left would say. Well, he fed 5,000. It seems like Jesus would build a longer table and not borders. He was an immigrant himself. That's what I hear about the left. And in the right.
Okay, let's go through it. Let's go through some of that stuff, and then we'll deal with stuff the right says. So Jesus fed 5,000 people. Do you know, and this is a personal question to you, do you know of any Christians, and you know a lot of Christians, Emil, and you've been a Christian for a while, do you know of any Christians that are so inhospitable where they wouldn't feed and serve neighbors?
No, I do
Okay.
not.
Neither do I. Like the Christians I know, and I'm talking about legitimate Christians, are some of the most giving, generous people. Like they go out of their way to give money to organizations, to serve themselves. Like they rush, that they'll go to different countries and do different work. I don't know anybody that would do that. But here's what I do know. There are Christians, and I include myself in this, who would be against the government forcing us to pay into a government program in order for them to feed the populace. And there's reasons for that, because I think the government is very lousy at doing this. It's not because I don't want to feed people. I'll give you an example. This happened to me 2 weeks ago. So I took my son to soccer practice. The soccer practice is held at like a community park. Okay? One of the parking lots was taken by like a big giant bus. And I thought it was like there was a game happening, but sometimes high schools come and play there and stuff like that. And we're standing there, and these two people approach us, and they go, "Hey," they have like a cart they're pulling with a bunch of boxes on it. And they go, "Hey, do you guys want some of these things?" They're essentially canned foods. And they're giving away boxes of them at this community park to anyone. So my friend and I said, "No, we're good, thanks." And they're trying to convince us to take it. And essentially they said, "We can't leave here till we give these out."
Okay.
Now, I'm not going to name the person. They went on to tell me that they're working for a certain political figure in this area where I live. Okay. From his office. And they're going around essentially doing community service. And I'll guarantee you that all this stuff that they had bought was using taxpayer money, and it wasn't even targeted. They like showed up somewhere, and let me be very frank about this. They showed up to a place where it is a large Hispanic community, and lots of people there, I would say a majority of the people there are Hispanic. Now, there's a bunch of assumptions being made here, by the way, that they're poor, that they need this stuff, but they're not even doing due diligence. Like, is this for the homeless? Is it not? They're just giving it out to anyone. All they want to do is get rid of all the stuff that's with them so they can go home. But I know for sure, here's what's going to happen. This political figure is going to start campaigning soon and say, our campaign gave away, by the way, this political figure is Armenian. Let me say that as well. But not conservative. Our campaign gave away $150,000 worth of X, Y, and Z to the needy. And I'm going to look at that and say, that's nonsense. You guys didn't even care who you were giving it to. All you want to is appear like you're giving it away. Like you didn't go door to door and house to house and look up on your sheets and see who's making what in regards to income to say, these are really needy people. This is a single mother who has 2 jobs, who really needs this stuff, who really needs coverage in this area, and we're going to go support her in that. Because you can't. That takes way more effort. It takes way more resources to do something like that, rather than show up at a public park and just give food to whoever wants, and then word of mouth spreads. And who knows who's taking it? I mean, there's people that are probably really well off taking it because they love free stuff.
Yeah.
Like I told this person, I don't need that. I'm good. And they're trying to convince me to take it.
Which to me, it's a contrast to what Jesus did, right? If I'm not mistaken, and I have to brush up on my synoptic gospels, but didn't Jesus feed them when they were hungry?
Correct.
They needed it.
Yeah. I mean, look, it's also, Jesus is caring for a bunch of other stuff, because the disciples' response is let them go into the towns and they can buy themselves food and stuff. And Jesus kind of goes, well, that's like way too much on them. They've come here, X, Y, and Z. So for me, it's like, well, right? It's like, it's close enough to something Jesus did, but it's like, you don't look at the bottom kind of breakdown of what Jesus did, and you just assume Jesus would have done that. It's like, oh, Jesus fed masses of people, so we're called to feed masses of people. And my response is, hang on, that's not necessarily true. Jesus isn't going around always feeding masses of people. He does it on 2 occasions.
Yeah, and one of them
And
he
he,
was. Yeah,
yeah, and the masses of people that are gathered there are there for a specific reason. And he's not, by the way, saying, guys, hang on here. Let's get the Roman government on the line and see what they can do for you masses. Like he does it himself,
yeah.
which to me is a conservative idea, right? It's like if I want to feed the masses, let's just say Arthur or Emil has a heart to feed the masses. So my response would be, Emil, start an organization, develop it in a way, grow it out, get your donors, private donors, and then feed the masses.
Mm-hmm.
Like, don't rely on the government to feed the masses, which for me, again, is a conservative idea. It's not a liberal idea. It's
That's
a
a very
conservative
good
idea.
Yes.
I would just say, do it yourself. Somebody comes to me and says, hey, let's just say like in the church, you and I both are involved in our church and stuff like that. And if somebody comes and says, hey, I have a heart for the homeless, my response is not going to be, oh, let the government take care of it. Or, hey, see what government programs there are. Like my response would be, let's put our heads together and see if we can develop something for the homeless here in our community. You
Yes.
run it. Take responsibility. Let's challenge our church to take responsibility over whatever we can do here in our area.
Yeah.
And
Which
if
is
every church did that, this would be kind of the challenge to fellow Christians. Yeah. If every church did that, then we probably would take care of the issue ourselves without needing the government.
Yeah, that's actually interesting because that's more Christ-like than people think. Because when Jesus was going to feed the 5,000, and I think this is the first account that we have it in, one of his responses, depending on which translation you read, Jesus first says, "You do it."
Yeah, to
Do
the
it.
disciples.
Yeah, do it.
Correct.
Have that. Do it. And then Jesus does it himself. But I see what you mean. Yeah, it's important for me to note, though, for my audience, that I'm not a leftist, by the way.
Yeah.
It's just I like to because
Emil, this is what we were talking about earlier. Is that we want to deal with the best arguments the other side has.
Yeah, and I'm trying to give the arguments that I've heard, but I don't think these are the best arguments.
They're not. They're not. Yeah. But it's the popular ones. It's the ones people tweet over and all that stuff.
These are the build a longer table, not a wall.
Yeah,
all the implications. Yeah.
It's like build a longer table and not a wall. Great. Let's practically use let's see if you live like that.
Mm.
How many people live in your house?
Mine?
No, I'm just saying no. like the people who say these things.
Yeah.
It's always other people doing these. It's never them doing it.
Yeah.
Right? It's like, do you just go out every single night and invite the homeless in your community to your house so you can have a longer table? Could you even do that? No. But here's what they're gonna say. Well, I don't have the resources to do that, but the government has the resources to do that. Or collective Christians. So for me, let's not even get the government involved. Let's do it ourselves as Christians if we can.
Yeah.
And there's a legitimate question to be asked. Maybe churches are being wasteful with finances coming in. Maybe churches need to examine the way they're spending money and X, Y, and Z. Mm-hmm. Those are all legitimate questions. But I can say that of the government too. I can look at the government and say, well, I saw this video a couple of years ago where New York spent like millions of dollars to renovate this bathroom in a local park. And the guy's going, and it's like a mess. It's like one of those bathrooms where it's like all metal and, all this stuff. And then this guy's going around asking citizens over there that are using the bathroom, like, how much do you think this bathroom cost? And then he's telling them the real amount. And then there's a bathroom down the street or something that's being used by more people that was privately funded. And he says, how much do you think that bathroom cost? And it's like not even 10% or something like that of what the cost was.
Wow.
Right? It's like you are legitimately in your right mind to question the way that things get funded. Like, I highly doubt the people that were giving that food out the other day at the park were volunteers. I highly doubt it. I think they were all being paid. Mm-hmm. And it's like, cool, you got 20 people to come out and give a bunch of food. How much did you pay those 20 people? So the money people gave for the food didn't even go towards the food, which is fine. You said, hey, we need resources to help. But it comes off a lot more generous, a lot more virtuous.
Yeah.
Than somebody saying, hey, you got an issue there? Let's fix it in our own community.
Yeah.
It's like taking responsibility.
I think it's also important to remember Paul's attitude in his epistles when it came to moral proximity versus people who were Christians who were far away.
Correct.
So I do not recall the contrast in the two books that I'm referring to, but let's just say one of them is Corinthians and one of them is Romans, okay? And I'm saying let's just say, okay? So in Corinthians, if he was going to collect money, he was a lot more stern with them to support those. Collecting the church needs to collect money to support those within their moral proximity. However, in other letters where he's collecting money to give to churches far away, he wasn't giving it as a moral imperative per se, and he wasn't as stern about it. So it's kind of the same thing here in a way. Like I could bridge that gap. It's not categorically the same, but I could kind of bridge the gap and say, are we gonna give it to the government to do as you said? Are we gonna do that, or are we gonna do it here within our proximity? Yeah. We do it, we take care of it, and we take care of the ones around us. We can't build a long table for everyone. Like you said, it's just not, how's that going to work?
Yeah. And the other thing is like, instead of building walls, it's like, what if the person wants to kill you? You invite them to your table? Like there's a certain kind of moral, like you said, moral imperative in regards to like the job of society. This is what I mean is a worldview issue. Like what is the point of government? The point of government, as has been rightly said, is essentially to provide security for the flourishing of its own people. Mm-hmm. But security is extremely important to that, because if people are not secure, then they're not going to invest. They're not going to live there. They're not going to do X, Y, and Z. Now, does the government do its job always when it comes to providing security? No, not always. But it's the job of the government. That's one of them, to protect your rights, to provide your security so that you would be able to do whatever it is that you want to do. Mm-hmm. So when people say stuff like, oh, don't build walls, and it's like, you realize sometimes walls are necessary for security. Like that's just, walls are a very simple way of like protection. Like they always have been. You love the ancient world as much as I do. And it's like one of the things, like, what do you do in the ancient world when you build like a town? It's like one of the first things you do. Build a wall.
Build a wall. Protect yourself. I mean, look, Sennacherib couldn't take over Jerusalem. Obviously, a major part of it is that I think the Shekinah glory of God was still there in the temple, and the angel came down and smit like 186,000 people. But
from a practical perspective, like if a secular historian is looking at that, and they go, wow, the walls had something to do with it. Here's a very interesting thing. It's when Ezra and Nehemiah, that whole going back. It's like, what do they go back to do in Jerusalem? Build the walls.
They're rebuilding that.
Why are they building walls? Because it's a natural defense, right? Sorry, not a natural defense. It is a defense. One of the things that I saw in Armenia that was really cool is natural defenses, natural fortifications where towns would be built, or cities in the old days would be built in high places because there's barriers. Mm-hmm. They couldn't climb that mountain, so it became a natural defense. They're using nature to their advantage, and then they would build a wall on top of that and turn it into a fortress. But the question is, like, is something inherently wrong with building walls? No, walls do a lot of really cool stuff. Like the office I'm sitting in right now has walls. It's got a roof and protects me from the elements. Mm-hmm. Right?
It does, yeah.
Like, and then there's the other thing of like, if that's the job of government, right? Then there's other stuff in regards to what's going to provide for security, what's going to provide for a safe place for people to thrive.
Mm-hmm. Look, I can't.
Sorry, policy-wise, it's just like open immigration is a really bad idea.
So that's what I want to get to. Like, when it comes to politics, I haven't done a lot of homework like, let's say, Tom Megan, you have, right? But I do understand the ancient world to a degree, because that's one of my favorite things to study, namely Jesus is in this world. And look, the United States of America has almost never experienced what people have experienced historically throughout the world.
Yeah.
We live in a bubble, whether we like it or not. We live in a bubble. We're not necessarily landlocked. Like, people haven't came and attack us. We don't even have a history of that to a degree, apart from like British, French, whatever. But you get what I mean. For the most part, we're a very safe country.
So here's one of the things that's important. I said something and I should clarify myself. Sorry, Emil, because I'm processing this. So the United States, there's a guy in here. His name is Mario, who seems like he's 5, but he's been banned. The United States at one point had an open immigration policy. Anybody can come to the United States that want it. It is not the immigration policy that the United States has now. So folks can think back to like Ellis Island and all the people that came through. Like if somebody wanted to come to America, they could just come here. There's a couple of things that people don't think about. Number one, they would have to get on a boat and it would take a very, very long time to arrive here. So it was a big journey. It was very difficult to do, which a lot of people were like the hope and the promise of it being better than where they were. They took the risk. The other thing is there was no social policies during that time period. Like there was no social welfare programs. Like you weren't guaranteed money and, you know, to be on welfare and all this. Like you came here, you were going to struggle and it was going to be hard. At one point, America got affluent enough to be able to give people who were suffering and struggling those sorts of things, which I'm for, by the way.
Of course.
To a certain extent. I think there should be some kind of a safety net. But if you get an influx, like open immigration, some of the people that were talking during these political kind of conversations, if you get a whole influx of people that come into your country, that is way too much for the people that are already living in your country to be able to, for them to be able to support the people that are coming in. Like it's going to collapse your whole economy. It's not wise. These same people will argue for things like you shouldn't have a lot of kids. These are the things I catch on, right? Like I will see generally a liberal person who will make these comments and then I'll be like, hey, why don't you have 10 kids? And they'll be like, oh, because, you know, you want to be able to afford to be able to care for those 10 kids. You want to be emotionally there. And like and these are all good things. Yeah. It's like, okay, so why don't you put that on a social scale? Like as a society, we have to be able to take care of the people that are coming into our country.
Very good point. Yeah.
We're both immigrants, bro.
Yeah.
People need to realize you and I are both immigrants.
Yeah.
Right? Like first generation, not like our parents came here and we were already born when we came here. I was much older than you were. But like we know what it's like to be an immigrant in this country. We know what it's like to be on welfare.
Oh yeah. Yeah.
Like
food stamps and everything.
Yeah, like we've gone through the whole thing. And so, but that's a legitimate question. It's like, if you're going to do that for your family, if I'm going to say, I'm not just going to have an unlimited amount of kids and all this stuff because X, Y, and Z, resources, the earth, environmental realities and all these things. But it seems to me that there's like a cognitive dissonance. It's like you're not paying attention to, let's just get an influx of like, whatever, 5 million people in a year into the country. Yeah. And it's like, can the country actually handle that? Yeah. If it can, maybe then it should. And the United States has certain policies about accepting a certain amount of immigrants into the country. I think it's 1 million, if I'm not mistaken, a year. And maybe they should increase that, but have the conversation about that rather than saying, especially in the religious kind of conversations, like have a longer table instead of a wall. And it's like, come on, like let's think through this stuff seriously.
Yeah, I mean, look, you know me. You probably understand. A lot of people on this chat know me, but I think you understand me the most, especially from, like I'm in school, so I like to question things. I like to take a step back, and then people think I'm a liberal because I'm questioning both sides. Just try to see where I'm assessing these things. Is this information valid? I can tell you this from the bottom of my heart. I think American politics is mumbo jumbo. It's rubbish. Because what I was trying to tell you right now, before you said it, is this is the point I was trying to make. The United States does not have the history that other people have. So when they say something like, don't build the walls, dude, do they know what happened to Israel, Canaan, Egypt, Assyria, Babylon, Persia, Greece? Or do they know that they would skin these people alive? Yeah. Do they know how brutal they were? Do they know that they would come in and take away their culture, change their names, displace them? Dude, and this is, Arthur, what I just told you is just the history of a small little region in the ancient Near East.
Yeah, exactly.
America does not have that in its history. We just don't. We don't have that.
In plenty of places in the world, people think Americans are naive because we've had it so good.
That's where I'm going at. We're naive. So whenever we have these policies from the left saying don't build that wall or whatever they're really saying, I do not at this point. I do not even know how to differentiate between the general populace and what the politicians are saying. But it's, to me, I just throw it out the other ear. I'm like, you have no idea world history of what really happened.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah. It comes out of like a certain kind of like affluence. I read another tweet the other day by a very well known, I would say, left leaning Christian theologian.
Okay.
And something around the lines of like, you don't need guns. All you need to do is like study like jujitsu or something like that.
Oh, okay. That's a silly statement, man.
Yeah. So Inspiring Philosophy, Michael Jones commented on. There's a thread you can go, if you go to his channel, or his YouTube page, you'll see it.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you can't be serious about this. Like,
Wait,
you're
so
smart enough. You're smart enough
Yeah.
and he is. I know the guy, and I've interacted with some of his content. You're smart enough to know that I don't care how good you are in jujitsu, it's not going to help you in a situation, in certain situations. Right? Like, it's just not.
hmm
You need better ways of protecting yourself. You need better ways. And you would hope, and you would hope you'd never even have to ever use that kind of force. I think that's
Yeah.
a solid Christian position. You hope you never ever like, and he put something like American Christians. Oh man, I want to read this.
The imagery I'm getting is funny. Like, is he gonna lay down on the floor waiting for the robber to come to a jujitsu position, and so he can wrestle with him?
I have no idea.
That's yeah.
I want to read this tweet because it's
Yeah, go ahead. Let me know if you find it.
lots of posts.
Yeah.
Tweets and replies. And I'm not on Twitter a lot, so it's
Yeah, yeah.
like, I don't know how to navigate this stuff sometimes. And then it used to be just a normal timeline, but now it's like, hey, if you're... I think I found it. Okay. So by the way, this is Randall Rouser that said this. The tentative apologist. I'm trying to find that specific because it's like a thread of stuff that's happened.
Yeah.
Oh, he wrote, Christians who keep a handgun just in case they need to kill their neighbor are like a vegan animal rights activist who keeps a bottle of ketchup just in case they need to eat a hamburger. Now, I'm looking at this and I'm just like, okay, I don't know anybody who's sitting there going, yeah, I'm keeping this handgun so I can shoot my neighbor.
Yeah.
I don't know anyone, right? So it's a mischaracterization of the position.
Mhm.
It's actually, like, for me, like, that is lying. When somebody does something like this to me as a Christian, I think it's lying because you're not presenting the other person's position properly. Like, do you know of anyone who says this? No, I don't. Right? Like, the people that I know are essentially saying, hey, I need this just in case someone comes in to hurt my family. Now, that might be your neighbor, but at that moment, he is not your neighbor anymore. He's trying to hurt and harm you.
Mhm.
And you're not going to get kind of a kick out of it. That's just horrendous that's
Yeah.
even had to happen. And so someone else responded to him and wrote, Christians cannot ever justify using deadly force in self-defense, even in cases where it would legally be warranted. Is this the theology you're teaching? And his response was, vegans can't eat a hamburger even if they aren't starving. That's the kind of animal rights activism you're teaching. Like, so what he's essentially teaching is a complete and utter pacifism, regardless.
Yeah.
But I'm not sure whether this guy would live up to this. It if somebody came in there and was trying to hurt his family. Like as a father of 3 little children. Like for me, it's like there's no way I'd be like in regards to me, maybe I might be okay with it. But in regards to my children and those that I have a responsibility over, I might not be.
Yeah.
Like, so, but again, it's like, it's unnecessary. Like, you're smarter than this.
I know, but Arthur, to be fair, sometimes, like even me as a student, with my bachelor's in the biblical studies and cultural exegesis, and getting my master's in theology, if you asked me about Jesus, the Yahweh's policy with like sojourners and all these things, it's sometimes even for me, it's hard to separate that emotional connection I have. If you trying to
with what, like, what are you trying to say here?
Like that sensitivity where I'm like, it does like I'm not using my mind 100% of the way, and I know you don't like that.
No, I'm cool with it. I'm absolutely cool with it. Like we should have compassion in these areas. I think that's an emotional thing. Why wouldn't we? Yeah. But it's like, okay, cool. Let's look at the way God sets up the Old Testament. Kind of, like because people will like do this thing where they like quote a passage and then not quote the other passage, and I hate that. So. Okay, I'm gonna talk about some Buddy Riviera put up a pretty good response. I want to respond to that. We'll get there. So it's like in the Old Testament, God puts up a social policy where they're supposed to take care of the alien, the widow, and so on and so forth, right? But there's jobs that these individuals have to do. It's like don't complete. So it tells the citizens don't completely get everything when you're harvesting. Don't take everything off. Leave it for the foreigners, and then the foreigners have to come and pick all that stuff up.
Yeah,
I'm cool with that. It's like, but it shouldn't be they sit at home and they just get money. And by the way, U.S. policy in regards to this is supposed to be like this. Like if you're on welfare, you're supposed to be either going to school, developing in a way, or having some kind of a job. I wouldn't agree with the way it's necessarily set up, but I think they're trying to do that. And that's fine. I'm cool with that. My comments were essentially like how many people you immigrate into the country every single year. My family and I had to wait like 11 years. No, 10 years in order for us to come to America. The waiting list was 10 years.
Yeah.
Right? We didn't come here illegally. It took us 10 years of waiting. Like my parents applied for it when I was 1 and then we get here when I was 11.
Yeah.
And that was escaping communist Armenia.
Yeah.
And it took 11 years. But, so yeah, okay, go ahead.
What if, so I'm just trying to think of like the worst case scenario, right? Let's say something happens in Mexico. And it's a place where now in this world in Mexico, I'm not saying Mexico's bad, but now you have to escape. Something's going on, whatever it is, the government, and it's illegal for you to come into America unless you do X, Y, and Z, and that X, Y, and Z is going to take a number, like an X amount of time, where your family's probably going to starve, whatever it is.
It is never illegal for anyone to come into the United States unless they do it illegally. People need to know this, and a lot of people don't. Like you can literally get up and walk up to the border patrol and turn yourself in and say, I want asylum in the United States. Legally, the border patrol has to take you.
So if you're going through an issue,
they cannot turn you back.
So if something bad is happening and you need to come to escape.
You turn yourself into the border. I know people who've done this.
Okay.
Many people. This is legally the rule in the United States. It's asylum. So people go, what Tom is mentioning, people go to the border patrol. They say, hey, let's just say they're Ukrainians who flew to Mexico. And then from the Mexican border, they walk up to the border patrol. They go, I'm fleeing war. I need asylum in the United States. They have to take them in. What they'll do is they'll take them to immigration jail. They'll keep them there for a couple of weeks. And then they'll release them. And then they'll find lawyers and stuff like that. And they'll go through the process of becoming legal citizens. Or legal residents in the United States. They can't turn them away. The problem becomes when people are illegally coming into the country. They're trying to run across the border or whatever. So we already have a system in place.
Yeah. And so then there shouldn't be a fuss from the left side. There shouldn't. It seems like everything has an answer. Like it's there. There's a system there.
If people follow the laws. But people don't follow laws. People don't follow laws. And so that's, it becomes a part of our conversation. Now, again, I said maybe they should change asylum laws to say we're going to accept this many people. Some of the problems become about people who've come here illegally and then their children were born here. Like that complicates the situation. I think actually we should legalize all those people, but not at once. Like come up with a system of legalizing them. But for some reason, people aren't doing this, which is weird. And a number of conservative folks, I think, advocated for this. I forget their names. But okay, so I want to comment on what Buddy's saying here. He says, regarding the convo on immigration, your argument does not address the fact that the U.S. foreign policy has created unlivable conditions in Central America. Doesn't our government share responsibility for that? Okay. Asylum laws aren't always recognized. Many who do not get turned away and or treated as illegal. U.S. government doesn't follow the laws. Then that's the U.S. government's problem, and we can have a conversation about that. I don't know anybody who's been turned away, by the way, and I know people from Russia, from Armenia. I know people from Eastern European countries. I know people from South America who've come here through the asylum stuff and have gotten in completely fine. Mm-hmm. And they are in the process, or some of them have gone through the entire process, and some of them it's taken a number of years to become legal residents here. Mm-hmm. Now, in regards to a U.S. foreign policy, it seems to me that this is an easy way just to blame the United States for the problem of the world, or even Central America, without considering that the amount of corruption in these countries themselves and what they're responsible for in their own countries. So I'll give you a very good example of my own home country, where people in Armenia can sit there and complain and blame the United States. They can blame Russia for all their issues. And they do, by the way. For the way people see the United States and the Central American countries is the way Armenians view Armenia and the Russian relationship. But it only gets solved when the people in Armenia or in any country sit there and say, yeah, Russia's had bad foreign policies that's affected us in a very negative way. And it has. But we've also had corrupt politicians, and corruption is in our own country that's made our situations worse than it could have been. So you take personal responsibility there. It's like any one of these countries, look at their policies, look at the people in their own countries. Are they actually doing everything they can possibly do to make life better in their own countries? Or are we just going to blame the United States for all this stuff? Look, the United States is not perfect, nor do I think the United States is like God's gift to Earth or whatever like that. The United States has many, many issues and problems. I disagree with a good amount of U.S. foreign policy and the way they do things in various places. Before people could, when I was in high school and people couldn't even point on a map where Iraq was, I was against the Iraq war. From the beginning, I said this is a bad idea. And I was a teenager, but I knew where Iraq was. I knew people from Iraq. I understood the conversation around this stuff. And I was pretty conservative back then too. And then you had people who is like, where is Iraq? And they couldn't point it to you on a map. They didn't know what language people in Iraq spoke. Right? It's like, because there's a general lack of geographical knowledge here in America to the rest of the world. So again, you could blame them. And as an American citizen, I can blame the United States for their actions. But I think I can blame other countries for their lack of improving themselves. What if I flip that and say, how much money does the United States give to any given country in aid? And where does that money go? How come there's been no improvements and the U.S. just keeps dishing it out? And as an American citizen, I think you have the complete right to say, stop dishing it out. If it's not helping, it's not working, instead of dishing it out so much, invest it into your own country. I think that's reasonable for any person to say.
Yeah. I would actually recommend our audience to read a book called When Helping Hurts, and it covers...
Yeah, good book.
Yeah, very good book. It's going to cover a history of that. It's going to explain how giving money, it doesn't matter if it's to countries or to people or to whatever it is, if you help people in that way, they have records that showcase that it almost never works. Yeah. Unless your ministry is literally just for the sake of immediate relief.
Yeah.
It's not going to help with rehabilitation and development. So I'm looking at you.
Okay. So, Buddy says, read that before I want to respond. When the U.S.-backed Central American politicians get voted out, the U.S. government calls the election corrupt and coups newly elected leaders. I agree with you. I think that's wrong. They shouldn't do that. Right? They should not do that. But this stuff is not new. If we've had 50, 60 years of history in some of these places, and trust me, in the 60s, 70s, 80s, like the socialist policies that were like, and I mean this like theologically, I mean this politically, that were coming through, like where South American countries wanted to be essentially like Cuba's, and the U.S. had a right to defend against that. You can't say they didn't have a right to defend against that. Look at what was happening with with Cuba and the missile crisis. It's like you have a right to defend yourself if your enemy in that situation would be communist Russia was trying to get countries that are bordering you to essentially ideologically take over them and then point weapons at you. Like, I think this is what's going on with the Ukraine kind of Russia situation and NATO. Essentially, the Russians are like, hey, stop pushing up on our borders. You guys are becoming a threat to us. They have a right to that. Now, I don't agree with the way that they could conduct that kind of a conversation. And I very rarely, and this is the difficulty about being a Christian and living in these kind of circumstances, it's like, as a Christian, do I really think Putin is thinking about Jesus and following Jesus's policies on this stuff? No. Do I think Biden or Trump are like really considering Jesus in their policies and stuff? No. Look, buddy, I'm probably not going to read those books, to be fully frank with you, because I have plenty of books I'm already reading through. I am not a foreigner to massacres and genocides. Right? Emil's parents, my parents, were in Iran during the revolution of the Ayatollah. They had to flee that country because of that. They've had to flee multiple countries because of multiple issues. Armenians are a people that have gone through genocide at the hands of semi-superpowers and superpowers. We're still suffering these things. Do you care about the blockade that's going on in Artsakh? That has been going on for almost 2 months now. There's 120,000 people that are starving. I highly doubt that you do. And you care about that because it's not in close proximity to you. What Emil was talking about in regards to moral proximity. We're generally going to care about the things that are in moral proximity to us in the sense of we're connected to them, family members, church members, country, all those things. That's probably closer to you, and you could be completely right in what you're saying. Like I said, I don't agree with everything the United States does. But that doesn't mean that the U.S. just goes around just saying, hey, these guys made these decisions whenever, and so what we're going to do is empty out your country into our country. Or we've sent you guys millions and millions and millions of dollars over the past 10 years, but nothing's come out of it, and we're just going to refuse to send any more money. How would you live your life as an individual? Even if you hurt your neighbor, let's just say you hurt your neighbor, and you gave him money to rebuild his house. Let's just say you bulldoze his house. And then over like 15-year time frame, you give him a bunch of money, enough for him to rebuild his house. And his house is still not rebuilt. He's living in a bungalow, and he still wants you to send that money. Would you not say, hey, I've given you enough, man? Okay, so Tom's question to you. Emil, can you give us some issues you have heard that people have with conservative Christians, especially as it pertains to social issues?
Yeah, I mean, we kind of touched on it though. So maybe you weren't here for like a moment because of work, but it's just like a oversimplification, right? They look at Jesus. So the left looks at Jesus's life, and they go like, okay, well, Jesus is very accepting to people. He's taking in people from Tyre and Sidon. He's taking Gentiles in. He's taking Jews in. He's taking people from the near and the far. He's so accepting, He's so like, come to me. He's talking to the Samaritan woman. He goes through their place, and then they look at that, and they say, well, what are conservative Christians saying? In their understanding, what are they saying? And what they hear or how they interpret it is Mexicans shouldn't be coming here. Are they doing what Jesus is doing? So that's I think they're oversimplifying a very complex issue, number one, and they're probably misunderstanding what conservative people are saying. Another thing is, come on, I mean, liberals constantly talk about like feeding these people and that people, just like how Arthur just mentioned, right? Where he went, they were just feeding a bunch of people. So what liberals do, again, just the common liberal is what I'm talking about, is they look at Jesus' life and they say, wow, this guy fed the 5,000, he's doing this and that, he's taking care of people, he loves them. But the conservatives are saying, pick yourself up from your bootstraps. So do you see what I'm saying, Tom? Like, this is how they're perceiving the right.
Yeah, the question should be, I think one of the things that we probably should need to do as conservatives is maybe explain these things, that the perception is incorrect. That's not what we're saying. And you don't really get this, by the way, when it comes to like cable television. Like if someone's on Fox News, they just get them there so they can scream at each other and they can get ratings. So that's my issue. Like, I know someone, by the way, I know a Christian theologian who was invited to be on Fox News to discuss a certain subject on LGBTQ stuff. Could be wrong. It might have been CNN. And then was uninvited, and essentially the reason was given to him that you are not controversial enough. Like that tells me that they're not really interested in hearing like the way a Christian would nuance a situation on the given subject. And what they want is some crazy person to get up there and say, God says kill them all. And then, you know, it just like, it becomes viral. Like some of the stuff we were talking about with Tom earlier on, it's like you just say stupid stuff and you get millions of views and commercials played and all this stuff. You're not going to get a guy that's going to get up there and say, no, we need to be loving, but we have moral standards, but the Bible says this, and we want to honor God, but we're still, here's what love means, here's what acceptance means, here's what tolerance means. We disagree with this definition here. Like that's all like nuanced, like explanation in regards to the way the conversation is supposed to be. People aren't interested in that. Right? So it's like if somebody comes and says, let's just give that understanding. I read Steven Anderson. I said, let's give that understanding that you just said. Oh, Jesus is accepting of X, Y, Z, and all these people. And so Jesus therefore must be accepting of LGBTQ stuff. I'm like, yeah, but Jesus regularly tells people to live a holy life. He calls out religious hypocrisy, but he also calls people's sin into question and says, you can't live like this anymore. Mm-hmm. So he does both.
Yes.
So it doesn't mean I just accept anyone. Yeah. It means the same thing it means for me and you. I can go to God, but I got to repent. Mm-hmm. I'm not saying anything any different to anyone else that I'm not saying of myself.
Yeah. How confident are you that the left and the right are both misunderstanding each other to a degree?
I don't think they're misunderstanding each other. I think they're talking past each other quite a bit. Mm-hmm. They're yelling at each other quite a bit. And I think that's the reason for that is because both of them are committed to their worldview. They have a presupposed worldview. They have a presupposed ideology. Yeah. And they're both yelling that at each other. Yeah. And that's why they're not getting anywhere with it.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Now, again, like I'm aware of my presupposed ideology, but I realize my presupposed ideology also goes against a bunch of stuff that conservatives will say. Certain conservatives, I don't want to say conservatives in total, certain conservatives will say. Yeah. Right. But could I find myself in agreement with the left, like American liberals? No, like I said, because we don't have a shared worldview. Here's a very simple example. Suppose we're dealing with crime, right? And we have a big crime problem here. And I go, great. I think the reason why we have a crime problem, essentially foundationally, is that we have a sin problem. People are evil naturally. The person next to me, forget like being left or right. The person next to me says something like, no, I think people are naturally good. It's education that's the problem. So here's the way we're going to fix this crime problem. We educate the people. And I look at them and say, no, I disagree with you. I don't think education is the problem. Not that education is bad. I'm all for education. But I think the problem is a human nature problem. Immediately we have a worldview issue, which is going to cause us to come up with different solutions to the problem.
Mhm.
So what they're going to do is they're going to try to dump a bunch of money into education, right?
Mhm.
It might help a little bit, but I don't think it will resolve the issue. And then what I might do is actually dump a bunch of money into like policing. This is where the difference in ideology is. This like socially, it gives that kind of a outworking, right? And then they start yelling at each other and telling each other how bad the other is. It's like, no, there's no need. Like we fundamentally disagree on what the problem is and how to solve the problem. Now you see how this becomes a social issue in the sense of like, oh, now these people have been over policed. You guys did it wrong. And I'm like, yeah, but you've been spending millions and millions and millions of dollars trying to educate people and nothing's changing.
Yeah. So
And then, yeah.
So just for the sake of your audience understanding you, do you believe that the conservative platform and Jesus's kingdom, do you believe that within Jesus's kingdom a subcategory of that is conservatism, the right? Because I don't want people to misunderstand you. Maybe you believe conservatism is a Christian thing. The right wing is a byproduct of Christian faith. Or maybe you believe they're entirely separate and one is
So
equal.
I'll tell you this. Labels are a funny sort of thing. When I was in Bible college, if somebody said I was a Pentecostal, I would have told them, no, I'm not Pentecostal, because that meant something. I would have told them I'm more charismatic. Now, if somebody tells me I'm charismatic, I would tell them, no, I'm not a charismatic nor Pentecostal. I'm like a continuationist. Okay, because the labels have changed.
Yes.
Because what was and this is 2007, what was charismatic then by definition is different now.
Okay.
And what was Pentecostal then. So what is conservative in the historical sense is different than what is conservative now. Even the way we're speaking about like right wing, left wing. What was liberal when John F. Kennedy was president is very different than what is liberal now. Like John F. Kennedy would be considered a centrist or something like that. Yeah, the modern left might like go crazy over John F. Kennedy and the stuff he said, right? Ask not what your country can do for you, but what you can do for your country. Like how conservative does that sound? Right? Like legitimately, it sounds very conservative.
Yeah.
And like if somebody gets up and says that now, it's like no, you know. And so for me, it depends on how we're defining conservative, liberal, neoliberal, neoconservative, whatever, all these terminologies. Here's what I would say. I don't want to run from the question. I just, again, there's quite a bit of nuances. I think generally the conservative platform in the United States and the Republican platform, which I think has a lot of issues, because I'm more conservative than the Republicans, I would say. The conservative platform in the United States is, in its ideological foundations, closer to the biblical teaching. And notice I'm saying biblical here and not just Jesus, because I think we have to develop a biblical ideology. Okay, is closer to that than the non-conservative. If you want to say liberal, that's fine. Right? But even like some of these terms, like right wing has traditionally been like far right is the way we're using this now, and far left. These are things that were applied to like neo-Nazis, man. Like fascists. Like, oh, they're right wing. They're fascist. They're fascistic nationalists or something like that, which is, again, what the right is being accused of. But when you look at conservatism as an ideology and fascism or socialism as an ideology, it's not the right wing. It's not the conservatives that are closer in line with like a humongous state, whether it's socialism or fascism, but it's rather than left wing. They want a bigger government, where fascism and socialism wanted a bigger government. So the conservatives don't want a bigger government. It's like, but you're using this label, oh, you guys are far right or something like that. But and then they have like traces of certain things. Like one of the things that bothers me a little bit, and there's a podcast that's going to come out. I did an interview. We spoke about this recently, where like nationalism, like is there such like Christian nationalism? It's like, that's a loaded term. We want to break it down. Like, I personally don't like the word nationalism because it already has preset notions in history. Like, I would use words like patriotism, which is essentially caring for your own nation. Which, it was funny, when I was in Armenia, I would ask taxi drivers regularly what they thought about Donald Trump. Every other taxi I sat in, I sit in a lot of taxis over there, I would say, they would ask me where I'm from. They knew I was from, from outside Armenia. And I would tell them, and I would say, hey, just a question. What do we talk about politics, and people in Armenia love talking about politics. And I would say, what's your opinion about our president, Donald Trump? Not once did I hear anyone say something bad about him.
Oh.
Almost every single person said this. The guy loves his country. Good for him. And I was like, man, and I would tell them, you realize in America, that's a bad thing. Like, people get mad at him for thinking about his own country. And they would look at me like, you Americans are stupid. Like, why wouldn't he think about his country? Like, why would he think about another country? Like, it was such like a weird worldview kind of thing, right? Like, he gets accused for caring about his country too much. And they're like, he's the president of that country. Who else is he going to think about?
Yeah.
It's hilarious when you interact with people on that. And some of them were actually saying things like, oh, it doesn't impact Armenia positively, but he loves his country and I respect him for that.
Mm-hmm.
And I was like, dude, you just said wiser words than most of the political pundits I see in America. So yeah, we're not the Theonomist. Buddy says, thanks for responding to my points. Much appreciated. Thank you for being here, buddy. Thank you for your comments and questions. Appreciate it.
I'm having I got to do homework and stuff.
No, I gotta go too because it's getting late. Based on the presuppositions, the left's worldview is incoherent. Okay, what is a neoconservative? I probably wouldn't be able to give you a proper definition of what neoconservatism is, but again, these are. I mean, come back. My focus gets lost. It's hilarious.
Yeah.
When I move around too much. So yeah, I mean, the ideology there is like there's conservatism, and then there's like beyond that conservatism, right? Like, it's a newer kind of thing where the views are changed. So I can't give you a proper definition of that. I could, I just wouldn't like it, so it wouldn't be proper. Sorry. Google neoconservatism and see what they're saying.
Hey, should I bring the map today or just tomorrow?
Do you just want to like hang it at the church? What do you want to do with that?
Dude, I don't know, but these maps are good for lessons, man. It's a good reference.
Why don't you bring it? We'll find a place to put it in the church.
Okay.
Yeah. Okay. Thanks for hanging. Thanks for hopping on here, man. Appreciate it.
No problem, man. Okay.
See you tonight.
See you tonight.
I got smart friends. They keep me on my toes. These guys do, man. Like, all of them. It's really cool. I wouldn't be, one thing I should say as I'm going to go, my training, like I've had professional training in the sense of like education. But if I didn't have the ability to practice what I was learning in school at my local church, I personally would not have developed the way I've developed. So one of the greatest gifts to me was that I had a church that was very open and gracious enough to allow me to put into practice the stuff I was learning and reason that stuff through with people around me. So that goes to say, I want to encourage you guys, practice the stuff you're learning in your local church. Get together with some people, have these conversations, let them challenge you and push you back, and then try to properly come up with responses and explanations to things. And so the local church is extremely important. And so I said this in the beginning of the stream. If anybody is interested in starting an Apologia Center book club in your local church, wherever you may be, reach out to me, info@apologiacenter.com, and then we'll go from there. Okay. Thanks for watching this. We were on way longer than I anticipated, almost 3 hours. And we talked quite a bit of politics today, so that was really cool to do. There we are. Well, be well, and I will see you guys tomorrow. Take care and God bless.